The House will be in order. Those persons not having privilege of the floor will please vacate the chamber at this time. All members and guests in the galleries will please rise as we are led in prayer today by Pastor Jason Adkins. Pastor Adkins is a guest of the gentleman in the 30th District, Delegate Eldridge.
Let's bow our heads. Lord, we come before you in Jesus' name, thanking you, God, for this opportunity today. Lord, for another blessing of life. We ask you today, God, as we come before you, Lord, to be about our hearts and our minds, Lord, today, as they come before us, Lord, the House, the Senate, Lord, whoever it may be. God, we know today, Lord, that we read about Solomon in the Bible, God, that when he came to you, he didn't pray for all the fine things, God, all the mansions or the vehicles, Lord, but he prayed for wisdom and knowledge, God, and when he prayed for the wisdom and knowledge, we know, God, that it pleased you. And Lord, after it pleased you, God, that you blessed him with everything else because of the wisdom and knowledge that he had. Lord, and then it was so great, Lord, that the Queen of Sheba came to visit. And she said, Lord, the half had not been told. God, we pray that same for these senators, these House delegates today, God, the judiciary system, Lord, whatever it may be. We pray, God, for wisdom and knowledge, Lord. And we pray today harder than ever, because if there ever was a time that the nation that we live in, God, that was founded on you, is calling good evil and evil good, it's now. Lord, that we need to get on our knees and get back to the beginning. Lord, you said in your word, the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. We pray that for all of our delegates, all the senators, Lord. We pray, God, that they keep that in mind as they go to make these laws for us, Lord, in a nation that was founded on you, God, that we'd always look up to you and know that all good things come from above. Lord, we love you, praise you, and thank you for everything. For it's in Jesus' name we pray, and amen.
Please remain standing as we are led in the Pledge of Allegiance today by the gentleman in the 30th District, Delegate Eldridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would everybody join us in giving the pledge to our flag? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members and guests may be seated. Reading of the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, February 13, 2026.
Gentleman the 8th, Delegate Bell.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the Journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read.
Gentleman the 8th, ask unanimous consent that further reading of the Journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Are there objections? No objections are heard. Further reading of the Journal will be dispensed with. Gentleman the 1st.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to proceed to the 7th order of business for the purpose of taking up a resolution.
The gentleman the 1st asks unanimous consent that we proceed to the 7th order of business for the purpose of taking up and considering a resolution at this time. Are there objections? No objections are heard. Clerk will please report the resolution.
House Resolution 14, honoring the life and public service of the Honorable Timothy P. Armstead.
All members and guests in the galleries will please rise.
Mr. Speaker, the Armstead family, justices of the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals, and close friends of Justice Armstead are being escorted to the well of the chamber by the Kanawha delegation.
All members and guests will please remain standing as the clerk reads the resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 14, honoring the life and public service of the Honorable Timothy P. Armstead and expressing the condolences of the West Virginia House of Delegates on his passing. Whereas Tim Armstead was born on February 26, 1965 in Charleston, West Virginia, the son of Myrtle Kathleen Huffman Armstead and James Edward Armstead. And whereas Tim Armstead was a graduate of Braxton County High School, where he distinguished himself through academic achievement and leadership and was awarded the Knight of the Golden Horseshoe. And whereas Tim Armstead pursued his higher education at the University of Charleston, earning a degree in history and political science, and later received his law degree from West Virginia University College of Law, preparing him for a lifetime of service in the legal profession and public life. And whereas Tim Armstead practiced law in the state of West Virginia with distinction, earning a reputation for integrity, professionalism, and a deep respect for the rule of law. And whereas Tim Armstead began his public service as a press intern for Governor Arch A. Moore Jr., served as a law clerk for U.S. District Judge David A. Faber, and then as an executive assistant to the Chief of Staff of Governor Cecil Underwood. And whereas Tim Armstead was first appointed to the West Virginia House of Delegates in 1998 and was subsequently reelected by the citizens of his district. During his tenure in the House of Delegates, Tim served as Minority Leader and as Speaker of the House, providing steady leadership, fostering bipartisan cooperation, and guiding the legislative body through complex policy challenges with fairness and decorum. And whereas Tim Armstead later continued his public service when he was appointed to the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals and then was elected to the Supreme Court of Appeals of West Virginia and ultimately served as Chief Justice, where he was widely respected for his judicial temperament, commitment to constitutional principles, and dedication to the fair administration of justice. And whereas throughout his career in all branches of government, Tim Armstead exemplified public service, humility, and devotion to the people of West Virginia, leaving a lasting impact on the state's executive, legislative, and judicial institutions. And whereas while Tim Armstead held many roles and achieved many things during his life, he was most proud of being a dedicated husband to his wife, Anna, a proud father to his daughter, Katie, and a loving grandfather to his grandchildren, Benedum and Ann. And whereas Tim Armstead dedicated his life to the service of his fellow West Virginians, he was a champion for the state and a tireless advocate for children. His life was a tapestry of woven faith, hard work, and dedication. His commitment to ethics, kindness, and living a life marked by his salvation in Jesus was unmatched. Whereas Tim Armstead's devotion to service in this state was best exemplified following the tragic floods of 2016, when he spent months helping neighbors dig out mud and rebuild their homes and businesses, while fiercely advocating for improved flood resiliency and recovery programs to deliver aid and mitigate future disasters. He did this while his own home sustained flooding and damage. Whereas Tim Armstead leaves a lasting legacy of treating colleagues and citizens with empathy, dignity, respect, and kindness, even when they have passionate and diametrically opposing points of view. And whereas the citizens of the state of West Virginia, along with his colleagues, friends, and associates, recognize and honor Tim Armstead's lifetime of service and his enduring contributions to the great state of West Virginia. Therefore, be it resolved by the House of Delegates that the House of Delegates hereby memorializes the life of the Honorable Tim Armstead, and be it further resolved that the House of Delegates name the conference room located in 218M as the Speaker Tim Armstead Memorial Conference Room in honor of Speaker Tim Armstead's dedication and service to the House of Delegates in West Virginia. Be it further resolved that the House of Delegates hereby extends its sincere sympathy to the family of the Honorable Tim Armstead, and be it further resolved that the Clerk of the House of Delegates forward a copy of this resolution to the family of the Honorable Tim Armstead.
The question before the House is the adoption of the resolution just read by the clerk. Roll call is requested. Is the request sustained? The request is sustained. The question before the House is, shall the resolution be adopted? Those in favor of adoption of the resolution will please vote aye. Clerk will prepare the machine. Clerk will also please record the votes of all members escorting our guests this morning as having voted in the affirmative. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will please close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 93 ayes and 6 members absent. The chair declares the resolution adopted. The House will please be at ease. This time, our members will please escort our guests from the well of the chamber. All members and guests may now be seated. Introductions. Introductions. Gentleman the 17th, Doug Penston, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. I'm pleased to report that we're joined by a former member of the West Virginia House of Delegates. He spent 10 years here. He now sits on the bench in the 15th District in Fayette County. Former member and the Honorable Tom Fast. If the House would please make him feel welcome.
Gentleman the 55th, Doug Akers.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've got 3 announcements or introductions, I'm sorry, to make this morning. The first is we have a page from my district, Michael Mujis. His parents are friends of ours and own a restaurant in Canal City, which I highly, highly recommend. Michael, if you'd stand up and get a big round of applause, buddy. Welcome to the house today. Yes. Yeah, it's M&M Mart, by the way, is a restaurant. And Michael, do your parents make you work there? Okay, that's what I figured. All right. We also have 2 folks sitting with me, Mr. Speaker, who need no introduction, but I'll make one anyway. Famous son and mother combination here in West Virginia, Senator Shelley Moore Capito. Her son, former House Judiciary Chair. I'm sitting at his desk. Current U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of West Virginia, Moore Capito. A big round of applause, please.
Gentleman from the 37th, Doug Gearhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, from Mercer County, we have a page from Princeton High School, and you can see we raise them big in Mercer County. Hope you all will welcome Colton Bailey. Also, Mr. Chairman, in the gallery, members of Child Protective Mercer County. Today with us is Beth Sizemore, Erica Merrill, Erica Ramsey, and Allie Lambert. I'd ask for them to stand and be recognized.
Gentleman, the 26th, Second Rohrbach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's a great privilege today to introduce several guests that we have here. First, I'd like to introduce former delegate, Congresswoman Carol Miller. If Carol would stand up. I'd also like to introduce former Governor, now U.S. Senator, Jim Justice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a couple introductions this morning. First of all, I want to introduce my pages, John Wilt and Addie Mast. They also know me better as Mr. Bell from New Martinsville School, with their parents, Megan Wilt and Precious Mast. If they would please rise in the House to make them feel welcome. Also up in the gallery from the WVU Parkersburg Student Government Association, we have Trista Scarberry, their president, and their senators Carter Critchfield, Skylar Ford, and Ben Campbell, their senators. With the House make them, please, with the House make them feel welcome. And one last one, I'm not sure where he is, but I did just see him in the chamber. My immediate predecessor, former delegate David Kelly, was somewhere. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady from the 15th, Douglas Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a couple of announcements. One, former delegate that I was just made acquainted with, but I don't think he really needs an introduction. He's been here, he was in the House of Delegates for over 20 years. Former delegate Ron Walters. And also, in one of the galleries, I have a group here from Roane County, Canine Search and Rescue of West Virginia. If they could stand up, if they are in the, I see them there in the gallery. Nathan Justice, Stephanie Justice, and Chase Carr. Thank you.
The delegate from the 92nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of all the delegates from the Eastern Panhandle, I would like to introduce the CEO from the Eastern Panhandle Boys and Girls Club, Stacy Roan, and Junior Youth of the Year, Athena Cafferkey, who are joined by Director of Operations Amber Glennon, David Houston, Club Director, and members Aubrey King Dignazio, Khaleesi Leah, and Nate Shannon. If you could all give them a warm welcome.
Pictures for your two pages.
The delegate from the 20th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce you all to my page today, Branson Manuel, if you don't care to stand up, buddy. He's a sixth grader from Winfield Middle School who recently qualified for the West Virginia State Wrestling Tournament. In addition to wrestling, he also plays football and baseball, and he's a member of the Math Field Day team and the Math Club. He is an active member at New Life Church and is accompanied by his mom and dad, Sabrina and Bill Manuel, in the South Gallery, if you don't care to make him feel welcome today. Thank you.
The delegate from the 96th.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please join me in welcoming back a guest, former delegate Kayla Kessinger. She's over there in the back here. Please stand and help me welcome her back.
The delegate from the 95th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the House join me in giving a warm welcome to the members of the West Virginia Citizens Defense League that have proven themselves to be very outstanding grassroots lobbyists. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 11th, Douglas Fehrenbacher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Delegate Height and I would like to welcome the Boys and Girls Clubs from across West Virginia to the state capitol today. Boys and Girls Clubs offer a comprehensive after-school and summer program providing a safe and positive environment for young people to learn, grow, and become productive adults. Across West Virginia, there are 8 clubs serving more than 7,000 youth ages 6 to 18. From the Boys and Girls Club of Parkersburg, we have CEO Darlene Murphy, and she is joined by Youth of the Year Logan Wenger and Junior Youth of the Year Addison Rude. I also want to welcome the Alex Sams Club Director and youth members Chloe Hickel, Carson Nesselrote, Emma Rude from the Parkersburg and Gloucester clubs. Please join me after Delegate Height speaks about the other members.
Gentleman from the 92nd, Delegate Height.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I already introduced them. Thank you very much.
Gentleman from the 46th, Delegate Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we recognize medical students from the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine participating in the Rural Health Initiative program. These student doctors are completing clinical rotations across West Virginia and have demonstrated a strong commitment to advancing rural health care in our state. We commend their dedication to serving our communities and wish them continued success in their training. Please welcome WVSOM President Dr. James Nimitz along with Don Smith and Dreama Hill, WVSOM staff Amanda Hoke, our WVSOM student doctors Reemsha Busrai, Kestra Black, Reagan Rains, Jaden Daly, Taylor Tharp, Gabrielle Toller, Courtney Dressman, Ezekiel Hand, Logan Christian, Carrie Proctor, Daniel Proctor, Ethan Galloway, John Gallagher, and Dayton Miller. Will the House please give them a wild and wonderful West Virginia welcome?
Gentleman from the 61st, Delegate Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With us today, paging from Cross Lanes Christian School, we have Morgan Prine. Morgan is an outstanding soccer player and cheerleader. She is accompanied today by her mother, Kendra Prine. If the House would stand and make her feel welcome.
Gentleman from the 47th, Delegate Canterbury.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Delegate Campbell and I have a couple of pages here today. They are students at Eastern Greenbrier Middle School. They are Cooper Hoke and Greta Marini. And this is interesting. I was told that Greta is an exchange student from Italy. They are here with Cooper's father, Jeff Hoke, who's somewhere in the galleries. Would they all please stand and the House make them welcome?
Gentleman from the 59th, Delegate Shanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have the privilege of introducing 3 pages today. If they would stand as I call their name. They're all 7th graders from Cross Lanes Christian School. They are accompanied by Lena and Rich Olson. I'm sure all of us know Rich. And Wesley Olson. Abigail Ryan, Victoria Olson, and Juliet Scarberry. The House could make them feel welcome. Mr. Speaker, I also see in the North Gallery one of my former delegates when he represented Nitro, former Delegate Josh Hickenbottom.
Lady from the 71st, Delegate Kimball.
Good morning, everyone. I draw your attention to the North Gallery. We have some students with us from WVU. They're members of the student government, and if they wouldn't mind to stand, please, when I call their names. Bradley Dale, Michael Mignano, Logan Pierce, Paige Tuttle, and Brady Jackson. Would you please give them a warm welcome?
Gentleman from the 86th, Delegate Ward. From the 64th, Delegate Burkhammer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's great to see so many former members and colleagues and friends here today. So I'd like to introduce former member, current State Treasurer Larry Pack. If he would stand, let's make him welcome.
Gentleman from the 45th, Doggett Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I could turn your attention to the South Gallery, I've got a couple dear friends, or a few dear friends here today. They're down here working on behalf of the Citizens Defense League, protecting our Second Amendment rights. If these gentlemen would stand when I call their name: Danny Massey, W.C. Brewster, and Mike Wilson. Would the House please make them feel welcome?
Gentleman from the 4th, Doggett Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the South Gallery today, I am joined by family. If my Aunt Diane could stand up, and my cousin Rochelle, and her two wonderful children there, Julian and Eliana. They came all the way down to visit us from Harrison County, so I'm stealing a little thunder from you Harrison County delegates. Sorry. Can with that House make them feel welcome?
Gentleman from the 24th, Doggett Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two guests with me today in the South Gallery, and if they will stand when I call their name, we have 10-year-old Ava Fox from Raynell, West Virginia, and her grandmother, who is a board of directors member for the National Association of Realtors, and my great friend, Paige Powers. Colleagues, please give them a great welcome.
From the 33rd, Doggett Bridges.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself and Margita, we got some 2 pages from Logan Middle School. If they would stand on up, there she is, Paisley Blackburn and Trent Brown. Will the House please make them feel welcome?
Gentleman from the 54th, Doggett Pushkin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, serving as our head page over on this side of the chamber, we have Miss Annika Aurora, who's a junior at Cabell Midland High School. And Annika is the former vice president of West Virginia HOSA and the current vice president of West Virginia Equality and Forensics. Would the House please make Annika feel welcome?
Gentleman from the 88th, Doggett Hillenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the South Gallery, if the chamber would direct your attention there, and if the individuals will please stand as I call their names. I have a number of constituents and friends: Judy De La Garza, Beth Bosio, Kent Hunter, Lance and Sarah Evans, and Tony Campbell, who are here representing the West Virginians Against Transmission Injustice. If you haven't had a chance to go get a donut, they're downstairs in the rotunda, and I believe they put some material on your desks. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 91st, Doggett Masters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In addition to saying hello to my friends from the WVCDL, I have a pair of introductions to make. The first in the South Gallery is a Miss Kelly Greathouse. If she could stand, she is here on behalf of her son, bringing awareness to a pediatric neurological condition called PANS. As many of you are aware, my daughter Elsa is struggling with PANS. She is accompanied, having made the grueling 4.5-hour drive from the farm, and maybe more challengingly, have somebody watch our 4 children. My pleasure to introduce my beautiful wife, Kate. If the House can make them feel welcome.
Gentleman from the 6th, Doggett Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a page with me today from Sherrard Middle School. I'm not sure. There's Liam back there. So Liam Garbark is back here. Great student. He wants to be a surgeon someday, and he has the best homeroom teacher at Sherrard Middle School. I can guarantee that. Okay? And his father is with him as well up in the South Gallery, Dan Garbark. Would you please make them both feel welcome?
Gentleman from the 13th, Doggett Heckert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the West Gallery today, we have the honor of having Miss Anita Ashley from Roane County and former statesman's wife, Mr. Bob Ashley. Please make her feel welcome.
Gentleman from the 74th, Doggett Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the South Gallery, I would like to introduce a good friend of mine, a better friend of my son, Chris. He's the Communications Center Manager for the WVU Police Department. He's a proud member of the West Virginia Civil Defense League. And if Mr. David Prince would stand, please make him feel welcome.
Gentleman, the 25th, Douglas Hornbuckle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I have some friends with us today. First, I believe in the North Gallery is Dr. McJunkin, Professor of Pediatrics, as well as some concerned citizens of Kanawha and Putnam County. House, please make them feel welcome. Oh, it's up there, I couldn't see. And then also, excuse me, in the South Gallery, we have former member with us today, John Doyle. House, please make him feel welcome.
Lady from the 56th, Douglas Young.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, everyone. I have a page with me today. He's already gotten to work. Max Stepp is a 7th grader at Charleston Catholic Middle School, and he's joined by his mom. If everyone would make him feel welcome.
From the 78th, Douglas Shirelli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the South Gallery, we have a couple of our friends from Gun Owners of America. If they'd please stand as I call their names. Mr. Alex Shea is the West Virginia State Director. Ms. Jennifer Lewis is the Event Service Deputy Director. And J.P. Picardo is the Federal Affairs Legislative Assistant. If the House would please make these patriots feel welcome.
Gentleman from the 58th, Douglas Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to introduce a couple pages from my hometown. They have prepared their own remarks, which already tells me they're far more organized than I was at their age. So I have two wonderful pages here today, both representing Hayes Middle School. They are honored to serve as your page today in the West Virginia House of Delegates. Their wonderful parents are in the West Gallery, Brent and Don Epling. Would you please welcome and show your appreciation for both these pages? Thank you.
Lady from the 71st, Douglas Kimball.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a second introduction today. If I draw your attention to the West Gallery, and director from Heroes Haven, Patty Saunders, is here. She does very, very important work for North Central West Virginia. Please give her a warm welcome.
At this time, a chair will introduce our other head page for today's page program. From Charleston Catholic Middle School is Miss Kennedy Valentine, back as a repeater in our page program. Are there further introductions? Are there further introductions? Standing committee reports.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration House Bill 4599 relating to the West Virginia CARES background check variance process. Reports committee substitute back therefore with recommendation the committee substitute do pass, but first be referred to your Committee on the Judiciary.
Report will be received. Gentleman the first.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The two chairs having conferred unanimous consent the second reference to judiciary be dispensed with.
Gentleman from the first asked unanimous consent that the second reference to the Committee on the Judiciary for House Bill 4599 be dispensed with. Are there objections? No objections are heard. Bill will be placed upon the counter. Further standing committee reports.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4638 relating to registration of voters and voluntary registration of organ donors. It reports the same back with the recommendation that the bill do pass.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4990 relating to crimes using gift cards. Reports committee substitute back therefore with the recommendation the committee substitute do pass.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 4765 teacher, school personnel, and state police pay raise, and reports the same back with the recommendation the bill do pass.
Report will be received. We have further standing committee reports. If not, select committee reports, executive messages, Senate messages.
Clerk of the Senate announces that the Senate has passed the following bills. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 173, prohibiting abortifacients.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 389, Historic Rehab Building Credit Act.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Senate Bill 393, updating corporate net income tax definitions.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 531, establishing First Amendment Preservation Act.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Senate Bill 570, supplemental appropriation to Department of Health Fund 8802.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 692, authorizing green flashing warning lights on DOH vehicles.
The message will be received. Gentleman the first.
Mr. Speaker, unanimous consent to committee reference to the COM sub be dispensed with. Bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read first time.
Gentleman from the first asks unanimous consent that committee substitute for Senate Bill 692 be taken up for immediate consideration, have its committee reference dispensed with, and be read a first time. Are there objections? No objections are heard. The clerk will please read the bill a first time.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 692, authorizing green flashing warning lights on DOH vehicles.
Bill will be advanced to second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 772, declaring certain claims against West Virginia to be moral obligations.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Senate Bill 781, supplemental appropriation for Civil Contingent Fund, Fund 105.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance. Other Senate messages, if not petitions. Bills introduced.
House Bill 5529, relating to performance-based contracting for child placing agencies.
Gentleman the first.
Mr. Speaker, unanimous consent to further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with, that each bill be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the Chamber Automation System.
The gentleman from the first asks unanimous consent that the further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with, and that each bill be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committee as indicated on the Chamber Automation System. Are there objections? No objections are heard. Motions? Unfinished business? Bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4463, relating to the Board of Sanitarians.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having the bill read? No objections are heard. Gentleman the 99th, I get clerk to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. West Virginia's faced a shortage in sanitarians. Local health departments are required to fund training and certification in border counties at a cost approximately $10,000 per sanitarian in training at taxpayers' expense, only to lose those workers to higher-paying neighboring jurisdictions once they receive their accreditations. The only solution proposed by the West Virginia Association of Sanitarians is to simply increase sanitarian pay, but these services are largely fee-based. Higher pay means higher inspection fees, which increase costs for homeowners, homebuyers, restaurants, and ultimately West Virginians. There is another solution: manage the cost and structure of training and expand who is eligible to enter the profession, reduce the amount of travel required to attend in-person training, and allow it to be done at local level and overseen by local registered sanitarians, increase the amount of coursework that can be done online, make the required training available to all year long. Right now, it could take as long as 18 months for a professional entering in my county health department to become licensed as a sanitarian, where in others it only takes 6 months, all due to current available training schedule. Meanwhile, the local health department has to pay full salary and benefits, while the employees can only perform limited duties. Current rules impose a 4-year degree requirement that excludes graduates of vocational technical programs, despite the fact that many comparable professions rely on training and certification rather than 4-year academic credentials. Committee substitute for House Bill 4463 does not lower the public health standards. It lowers unnecessary barriers to enter, reduced training, costs borne by local boards of health department and taxpayers, allows capable, motivated individuals to serve their communities without taking on excessive student debt. It also corrects rigid accreditation rules that prevent experienced professional health professionals, even retired officials from other agencies like FDA, from the West Virginia communities. The West Virginia Association of Sanitarians and related organizations have known about this problem for years. They have failed to implement solutions. That is why we're here today. This is a practical, common sense, cost-conscious solution that strengthens public health capacity while protecting affordability for residents and small businesses across the state, and I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 3 members absent. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4463.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4865, providing for a program allowing election official trainees to be appointed as election officials.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having the bill read? No objections are heard. Gentleman from the 98th, Douglas Funkhauser, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 4865 is an important bill to increase civic engagement and participation in our election process by younger West Virginians. The bill provides for a program allowing election official trainees to be appointed as election officials. It requires young people to be a high school junior or senior who is attending a public or private secondary educational institution or being homeschooled at the time of election for which they are appointed as an election official. It sets forth a GPA requirement, and it requires the written approval of their parent, and if the appointment requires the student to work on a day when such school is in session, their principal. Finally, they must satisfactorily complete the training program for election officials set forth in code. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 57th, Douglas Lewis, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sponsor yield for questions. Who would do the appointments?
The governing body, so on line 19, the governing body responsible for appointing election officials, that would be the clerks, may establish a program.
Okay. So the clerks of each county would establish these programs?
Yes.
Okay. And why the GPA requirement? Why is that necessary?
Well, I believe the intent is so the folks that may be struggling in school, they don't miss a day and fall behind. So it's similar to the Promise Scholarship and athletic participation, as well as driver's license for folks under 18. There's GPA requirements in other sections of the code.
Those are like 2.0. So are we saying like a student who's 2.5, maybe that's the best they can do, they can't participate in this program?
Not as the bill's before us. This was on second reading yesterday. We did talk about this in committee, but no one offered amendments to lower it.
I wasn't here yesterday. But,
or Friday,
so,
I'm sorry.
I'm messing with you. Okay. And again, as far as the age is concerned, I mean, these students, I mean, it's a great program as far as the trainees, but to be election officials, some of these students won't even be able to vote, but they will handle elections? Isn't that kind of... Yeah.
It's a policy decision. I think it's a good one because it encourages civic engagement from juniors in high schools and juniors and seniors in our high school. Get them started early and keep them participating in our democracy.
Yeah, could we not accomplish that by them being trainees instead of being elected?
That's already current law. They are trainees. They're eligible to be trainees. They just can't fully participate in the election process, which this bill remedies with appropriate training and the guardrails in this bill.
But they still can't participate because they can't vote, right?
Well, they're ineligible to vote until they turn 18.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Gentleman from the 79th, Douglas Hanson, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the sponsor continue to yield? So my understanding is that this bill allows election official trainees to act as election officials. So what's the difference? What can somebody who's an election official do that a trainee can't do?
Well, the trainees is defined in another section of the code. Essentially, the trainees are there to assist the election officials, is my understanding, and so this allows them to fully participate as, with the appropriate guardrails in the entire election process. So that's the distinction.
So what's an example of some of the responsibilities of an election official? Is that the same as a poll worker?
Correct. Same as a poll worker.
So would some of their responsibilities include things like checking signatures and making sure the signatures match?
Yes.
And in some cases, wouldn't they be making a decision about whether a vote can be cast or whether it needs to be a provisional vote?
Yes, in certain instances.
Okay, so these are some of the responsibilities that this bill will give to 16 and 17-year-olds that they currently don't have?
Yes.
Okay. There's a provision in the bill that requires these trainees who want to become election officials to certify the political party that they choose to affiliate with.
That's required of all election officials currently.
Is there any other requirement in state code for somebody that's too young to vote to certify what party that they affiliate with?
No.
Is there anything that would prevent somebody who's 16 and 17 years old to certify a party, and then once they are able to vote because they become 18 to switch parties?
You're free to choose whatever party you want to be.
And why is it important for them to choose a political party to become an election official?
Why is it important for any of our election officials to declare a political party, which is current code?
Well, I was asking you the question.
I think the intent of the bill is just to conform with the current code requirements for the 16 to 17-year-olds.
I mean, my reading of that paragraph is that no more than one election official qualifying under this subsection may serve per political party per precinct. So there's basically a limit of one per party per precinct based on those certifications. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. If a young person identifies as no party, like an independent, will they be allowed to serve as an election official?
Not under the terms of the current code or current bill. So there's 10% set out for partisan, and that's what this bill allows for if they're so needed. This is, different counties have different needs. Some counties need this more than others, and I believe that's why this bill was presented to us, to get those counties that have those needs, to get younger voters involved in the process.
Based on current code, if an adult wants to serve as an election official and they're no party, can they serve as an election official?
No, not according to current code. They have to declare a party.
Okay. If one of these trainees who serves as an election official makes the decision, say to prevent somebody from voting based on a signature match or something like that, and that decision is challenged, like perhaps it goes to court, are there any guardrails related to the fact that this decision was made by a minor?
I think it's the same guardrails as a 19-year-old would have if they're participating as an election official. It's facts and evidences and circumstances.
Okay, thank you for yielding. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I think it's clear that I have some concerns about 16 and 17-year-olds making decisions in our polling places that could impact elections.
Gentleman, the 80th, David Williams is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would my friend yield just for a couple quick words?
I'll try.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So I think some of the fear that people have is just honestly that someone who hasn't reached the age of majority, are they responsible enough to do this? And I guess I have that same concern. Are there, the gentleman talked about some guardrails, but will there be other people around them to sort of make sure that what they're doing is okay and above board?
Yes, they have to be trained, and yes, when you go to a poll place, there's a whole team of poll workers there that they work together with. A lot of them are more older folks, and this is to try and bring the younger folks to get that experience and knowledge and guidance.
Okay, so if they had bad intent and wanted to somehow rig a couple of votes in the precinct, there would be checks and balances there for other people to see that?
Yeah, I don't think the age makes a difference of if, the same guardrails are in place. If someone's trying to tamper with elections, whether you're a 19-year-old or a 17-year-old, those same guardrails would apply equally.
Because right now, people can't really tamper with the elections and get somebody to do that, so the same would apply for the minors. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Lady in the 52nd, Nugget Howell is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the sponsor yield?
Sure.
Thank you, sir. After the discussions, I'll have one question. Will the juniors and seniors be subject to the same criminal penalties as adults would?
There would. There's no juvenile statute regarding the election officials.
All right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Gentleman, the 22nd, Nugget Linville is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sure.
Thank you. As defined here in the bill, an election official, are we talking about a poll worker?
Correct.
Okay. Do you serve on your county executive committee for your political party?
I do not.
Okay. Are you familiar with the process of finding and assigning poll workers?
Generally, yes.
So typically, the county Republican or Democrat executive committee is assigned to find poll workers for each individual precinct. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And typically, depending upon the results of past elections, right, there's 2 of one party and 1 of another for any given precinct. Is that typically the case?
Yes.
I know council may have some experience with this as well. So, so typically what you're going to have here is this bill would allow for a 16 or 17-year-old individual to, under a certain set of rules, be one of those names put forward in instances where you're having trouble filling those total number of poll workers, be one of the people put forward in order to continue and conduct the election. And that's typically at the appointment or suggestion of those 2 political parties. Is that typically how this would work?
Yes.
So you could have additional protections in that you just don't put forward their name if you don't need a 16 or 17-year-old?
It's at the discretion of each county.
Right. And I mentioned there that there's always at least 3, right? So there's sort of a top poll worker. I can't recall the term of art, but there's a chief poll worker effectively in any precinct, and then 1 beneath that for each party. Is that typically the case?
Yes, that's typical.
Okay, and so based upon this, because it's 2 from one party and 1 from another, no matter what, you've got an adult who's the chief poll worker. No matter what, in the absolute worst instance, you have an adult who is the chief poll worker for that precinct. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and they're supervising the decisions if there's a question among the other 2. Is that further correct?
Yes, that's correct. And you have the county clerk as well that's supervising these elections.
Okay, so what we're discussing here, and I know there's been a lot of concern. I'm glad there's concern about folks any younger, participating here. Appreciate that. But you're going to have an adult supervising at maximum 2 individuals, 1 from each party, at the discretion of those parties and the county clerks. Is that correct?
Yes, that's.
Man, that's pretty simple. And have you noticed that sometimes it's hard to find enough poll workers for a Tuesday where they've got to go through X amount of training and they're paid about $200 or so for the entire day?
That's definitely a concern in many counties, that they can't find enough poll workers.
So we're trying to make sure that we responsibly run our elections and are fully staffed. Is that right?
Yeah, get them in young, get them trained, and hopefully they can continue throughout their life.
All right, thank you to the sponsor. Mr. Speaker, this is a pretty simple bill. I think it's a good bill. I appreciate the Secretary of State requesting it, and I urge its adoption. Thank you.
From the 54th, Pushkin is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentlemen, continue to yield. Quick question.
Sure.
Did the trainees get paid?
Yeah, under the provisions of this bill, they would.
They get paid the same as a regular poll worker?
Yes, that's
Thank
correct.
you.
Is there further debate on the bill? Gentleman, the 98th, to close debate on the bill. The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 85 ayes, 10 nays, and 4 members absent. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4865.
There are title amendments. If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. For what purpose? The gentleman, the 60th, seek recognition. Douglas Farrell. What?
Bill.
Clerk will please report the next bill on 3rd reading.
House Bill 4881, relating to obtaining title to abandoned or junked motor vehicles abandoned on the property or place of business of an automobile dealer.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having the bill read? No objections are heard. Gentleman, the 60th, Douglas Farrell, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 4881 amends Chapter 17, Article 24A to remove the current $9,500 value cap and inflation adjustment from the abandoned or junked vehicle title and registration process. By striking those limits, the bill allows licensed dealers, automobile auctions, repair facilities, and PSC registered towing companies to obtain title and registration for qualifying abandoned or junked vehicles regardless of value, so as long as all statutory requirements are met. This bill passed the House last year 92-0, and I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill, please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 94 ayes, 0 nays, and 5 members absent. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4881.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4996 relating to bail in cases involving terroristic threats to schools or children.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having the bill read? No objections are heard. Gentleman the 65th, Douglas Martin, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 4996 relating to bail cases involving terroristic threats to schools or children. This committee substitute amends the WV code to establish a 1,000-foot restricted perimeter around any licensed daycare facility, child care center, preschool or early childhood education program, public school, public charter school, non-public school, or institution of higher education wherein persons charged with making terroristic threats may not reside while on bail for that criminal charge. I urge passage.
The question before the House again is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman the 25th, Douglas Hornbuckle, was recognized on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will you yield?
Yes, I'll yield.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so within this bill, it speaks to public charters, non-public schools, higher education, correct?
Yes.
And so I do not see, can you point me in the bill where it speaks to micro schools or homeschool?
It does not specifically speak to micro schools.
And so is there a reason why they were left out?
There's not a specific reason why that. No, I don't know the answer to that question.
Yes, sir. And so, again, moving on to the next one in regards to homeschool, which could be, you know, a cohort somewhere at one's home who could fall under the same situation with terroristic threats. What was the thought process of not allowing that there?
Yeah. So creating this to where affecting homeschools is very difficult. There's homes like all over that can have homeschool children. It'd make it very difficult to add that into law.
So you would agree when it comes to education of our kids, there's some inconsistencies on how this would apply?
Could you repeat that? I apologize.
Yeah, yes, sir. I said you would agree that there's some inconsistencies when it comes to our children's education and how this law would apply.
Well, I will say that I do believe that the courts have the option to add additional restrictions, which is in the bill.
But this bill does not, so that it would cause a disparate impact towards those kids versus the other kids, correct?
There can still be an order from a court when it comes to homeschooling.
Yes, but as this is
There would
written,
be no
it would be a
contact.
difference, correct? In how it's applied?
There's no provision for homeschooling.
Okay. And how would this be enforced?
It would be enforced the same way that that restrictions do for when it comes to sex offenders.
Okay. Permission to speak to the bill?
Yes, gentleman is recognized on the bill.
Yes, sir. Thank you, colleagues, this morning. The intent of the bill is good, and I agree with it. But how it is written currently in this form is going to be a lot of disparities between all of our kids. And so I think this bill still needs some work, and therefore I would be in opposition. Thank you.
Gentleman the 88th, Douglas Hildenbrand, is recognized on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the sponsor yield?
I do.
Thank you. Have you ever heard the statement that perfect is the enemy of good enough?
I've heard that before.
You have. Thank you very much. Then with respect to this bill, I appreciate the comments from the delegate from the 25th, but I'll be voting for this bill.
Lady in the 56th, Doug Young, is recognized on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield for some questions?
Yes.
Before we get to my questions, in response, you just mentioned that this would be enforced the same way that the sex offender provisions are enforced. What do you mean by that?
Well, they would file a petition to revoke the bail.
Can you raise, I can't hear you.
They would file a petition to revoke the bail.
Who would?
It can be anyone. It could be law enforcement, anyone within the laws in the court system.
Okay, so is the intention is, so someone is charged with a terroristic threat, and then after that pretrial bail agreement, there will be conditions that are laid out in here, and then that order will be given to everyone that potentially could be affected at that location, school or daycare, and then they would file a petition against the bail? What's the intent?
So when you said what's the intent?
I guess if you just want to answer my question first, that's fine.
Well, yeah,
Is that what is the intent of what is supposed to happen?
Yeah, so what the intent of the bill is supposed to happen is once they're trying to get bail, the court would not allow them, if they are wanting to reside within 1,000 feet of the school, to reside there, like on home confinement, while they're pretrial.
Okay, so they don't want to live within the 1,000-foot, and I understand that. But then the clerk is going to give the copy of the directives within the bail to every student and employee of that school.
So that would be upon request. They would provide that to the school, and the school would be able to hand that out.
That's not what it says in the bill. And under D, it says, shall provide
it says
certified
shall
copies
provide.
to any victim. So that would be everybody at the school, right?
It says shall provide without cost.
Okay, so they've got to give a copy to everybody at the school just so they're aware that this person,
If
basically
requested.
that this happened to their school and that here's their bail agreement.
Yes.
Okay, and the 1,000-foot, they can't live within 1,000 feet. I guess with that, with the clerk having to give out the bail order to all of the people at the school, how long are they going to have to provide that information?
While the case is pending.
I mean, when
while they're subject to the
it's
bail
ordered, so it's ordered on a Monday or whatever, when do they have to provide it to the, how much time is there to provide it to the school? So like with the sex offender registry, if a sex offender moves, then they report to the state police, and then the state police has 5 days to disseminate that information. So how's that going to work under this bill? Similar.
It would be a bond request from any of the victims.
But they have to do it. So it's not upon request.
It says shall upon request.
Where is the upon request? I'm on page 2, section D.
So subsection D only involves cost. So it says the clerk of the court to enter the order of the conditions of bail, and then without cost. So that's where there are costs involved when you're requesting it.
But they have to provide it to everybody. It's just going to be free, which it should be free, but they have to provide it to anybody at the school, right?
If they request it.
It's not, where is this request? Because it's not in this
The
code.
intent of the bill is to protect children, so.
Okay. And then if this person lives within 1,000 feet of one school, but they make a threat at a different school, they're not going to have to move. They're still going to be able to live by the school that they.
No, it's from my understanding, it's any school.
I don't think it is. It says that was the subject of the alleged threat.
Okay, so on this one, it is the if it's the one that they make the threat on.
Okay, so they just can't live by the school that they made the threat to. Okay, thank you so much for yielding. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to support this bill, but I think it needs a little bit more work. We don't have 1,000-foot residency conditions for any code, any crimes. I wish we did for sex offense crimes. We've been trying to work on that for a long time. I think that anyone that is making terroristic threats to schools or children should not be around those schools or children. So I'm going to support the bill, but I think it still needs a lot of work. So I hope it gets that in the Senate. Thank you.
Is there further debate on the bill? Does the gentleman wish to close debate on the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. We had 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 3 members absent. A majority of the members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4996.
Are there title amendments?
Delegate Akers moves to amend the title.
The question is on adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of adoption of the title amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title is amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4997, relating to residency restrictions for persons convicted of terroristic threats.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having the bill read? No objections are heard. Gentleman, the 65th, Doug Martin, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 4997 is the post-conviction companion bill to House Bill 4996. It creates a new section in Chapter 62, Article 12, to establish a residency restriction for a person convicted of making terroristic threats involving a school, students, or child center facilities. The bill prohibits such an offender from establishing or maintaining a residence within 1,000 feet of those facilities during any period of probation, parole, supervised release, or as a sentencing condition. A knowing violation is a felony punishable by 1 to 5 years of incarceration, a fine up to $10,000 or both, and may also serve as grounds for revocation of supervision. I urge passage.
Question again is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there were 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 3 members absent. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4997.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 5096, relating to removing services from requiring a certificate of need.
Ladies and gentlemen, this bill was advanced to third reading with amendments pending. The clerk will please report the first of the amendments.
Delegate Burkhammer moves to amend the committee substitute. This is HFA Burkhammer 2-12, number 1.
Gentleman from the 64th, Delegate Burkhammer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to withdraw the amendment.
Are there objections to having this amendment withdrawn? No objections are heard. The amendment will be withdrawn. Clerk will please report the next amendment.
Delegate Pushkin moves to amend the committee substitute. This is HFA Pushkin 2-13.
Questions on adoption of the amendment. Are there objections to allowing the sponsor to explain the amendment in lieu of having the amendment read? No objections are heard. Sponsor, the gentleman of the 54th, is recognized to explain the amendment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon. What this amendment does, first of all, it does not change the original intent of the bill at all. The original bill just removes the requirement for certificate of need for certain providers in the areas of intellectual and developmental disabilities and personal care. The amendment doesn't change that. In fact, the amendment does not remove any of the requirements for certificate of need at all. What the amendment does, it addresses a mistake that was made by this legislature years before the vast majority of us were here. There might be a I was like maybe one or two that were here at the time, and I apologize if you voted for it, but it was a mistake. And it created a moratorium on certain certificates of need. That means you cannot get a certificate of need in certain areas. What this does, it removes the moratorium on certificates of needs for methadone clinics. Now, no matter how you feel about that type of service, when you create this moratorium, what you get stuck with the incumbent providers. The service that you have is the service that you are stuck with. There is no competition. Nobody else can ever come in and do a better job because we created this artificial moratorium on it years ago. And so what this amendment simply does, it removes the moratorium on that. Also, very recently, like a couple weeks ago, I believe it was January 30th, in the federal court in Mississippi, there was a case, Slaughter versus Mississippi Department of Health, where these types of moratoriums were ruled unconstitutional. So what I'm going to allow us to do is fix an unconstitutional mistake, something that was put in our code years ago that created this artificial cap on this type of certificate of need. Reserve the right to close.
The question is on adoption of the amendment explained by the sponsor. Is there debate on the amendment? Gentleman from the 23rd, Delegate Worrell, is recognized on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll stand and urge rejection of the gentleman's amendment. What this would do is open up methadone clinics or more of them. We haven't seen the data that more treatment is needed for these methadone clinics, and therefore I think the moratorium should remain in place, and I would urge rejection of the gentleman's amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question still is on adoption of the amendment. Is there debate on the amendment? Is there debate on the amendment? If not, Chair recognizes the sponsor to close debate on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I disagree with the statement from my friend from Cabell, the chair of Health and Human Resources. This would not open it up because it doesn't remove the requirement for a certificate of need. You would still have the healthcare authority that would determine whether or not there was a need. But right now, they can't determine whether or not there's a need because there is a moratorium. And I'll read you the constitutional analysis of that case in Mississippi that was just a couple weeks ago. So, the court held that while certificate of need systems generally survive rational basis scrutiny, an indefinite or decades-long moratorium like the one we have here differs materially from ordinary and economic regulation. So the state failed to demonstrate a continuing current public health justification for categorical prohibition. And this one I think is more important, though. The court determined that allowing incumbent providers to operate while permanently excluding new entrants constituted irrational economic protectionism. Economic protectionism, that's what we're engaging in now through code. There's absolutely nothing conservative or supportive of the free market to put an artificial number on the amount of certificates of need that can be granted. And when you do that, like I said, you are stuck with the ones that you have. So if you don't particularly like the type of service that they've been providing in West Virginia, guess what? Under current law, you're stuck with it. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. If you open it up and allow for competition, that's what conservatives used to believe. If you open it up and allow for competition, we could possibly improve the services that we're getting in West Virginia. So I would urge adoption of the amendment.
Debate on the amendment has been closed. The question is, shall the amendment be adopted? Those in favor of adoption of the amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. No. Can noes appear to have it? Okay, noes have it. Chair declares that the amendment lost. Are there other amendments to the bill? If not, the clerk will please read the bill a third time as amended.
Committee substitute for House Bill 5096 relating to removing services from requiring a certificate of need.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having the bill read? If not, Gentleman from the 23rd, Delegate Worrell, is recognized to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 5096, the purpose of the bill is to remove personal care services and intellectual development disability services from certificate of need. That's an explanation of the bill. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 25th, Delegate Hornbuckle, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chair rise for a question?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. In relation to personal care services, I didn't see where that was defined in the bill. Just wanted to understand what those were.
Personal care services are traditionally like active daily living services, toiletry, eating,
6
bathing.
ADLs.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Gentleman to 13, Douglas Heckert's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The gentleman yield.
Yes, sir.
I've received some calls over the weekend from healthcare senior citizens facilities and concerned that if this bill passes, that it's going to hurt them, their ability to take care of the people with some of the stuff they do. Do you feel this bill will harm them in any way?
Did you say healthcare senior service facilities?
Senior citizens facilities, I'm sorry.
This bill doesn't affect facilities at all. It's just a service that's provided. So I'm not sure what facilities, senior service facilities there are.
Well, what the note I got, personal care, IDD waiver services, important survival of senior citizens and senior citizens facilities. I may have used the wrong term.
Okay.
I apologize. It says they provide a lot of the services like transportation, nutrition, meals, housekeeping services, and daily living activities. And in their opinion, they're worried that if this bill passes, that the nonprofits in these personal care units will suffer greatly.
Okay. My response to that would be that in May of 2023, the governor rewrote the need methodology for personal care services, which showed a great need in all counties across the state, which effectively meant that there need to be more providers providing the service. And since then, some providers have entered into these agreements, into the CON agreements to provide these services. But once again, these are just a service, not a facility based at all. This is just a service of sending someone into a home and community-based services to provide these. I would disagree with that argument based on the fact that that need methodology was rewritten almost 3 years ago to show there was a great need in all of our counties.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman to 54, Douglas Pushkin's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the chair yield. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I definitely agree with you that there is a great need in all of our counties. Do you know of, there have been a lot of, as the healthcare authority denied a lot of applications for certificates of need for IDD or for personal care?
I don't know that they've denied any, but what I would make the argument is that these are small businesses, and they don't even apply to the Certificate of Need program because of the length and the financial commitment that they would need to take to even be able to provide the service.
Okay. I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yep. The length of time it would take for a CON approval and the financial commitment to be able to receive an approval, if they did, that many don't even apply to do that because of it.
So they're just not even opening up these types of services because of their, you think they're not going into this type of business because of their Certificate of Need?
Correct. It's a barrier to their entrance because these are just small businesses that, provide a service. I mean, they don't have the capital to go into a, multi-year Certificate of Need process and pay a lot of money for legal fees for it.
Okay. Thank you for yielding.
Yep.
Briefly,
Yes,
Mr. Speaker. I know that there are a lot of barriers in place for these types of businesses to open, and they are needed. However, I don't think the barrier is the Certificate of Need. The barrier that I've heard is labor shortage. You can't find people who want to work in this incredibly challenging field of working with folks with IDD and going into homes and working with people. And it's because while we've tried to address the reimbursement rates, they're still not high enough. And we're not able to pay people enough to do these challenging jobs. That's the barrier, not the Certificate of Need.
Gentleman to 22nd, Douglas Lynn was recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Vice Chairman of Health actually yield?
Yes.
Thank you to my friend. I note that services for those with intellectual and developmental disabilities are included in this bill. Is that services, as a for instance, like we're subject of a major investigation several years ago where places like ResCare were certified license holders via Certificate of Need, and I think there were something like 6 deaths and a number of atrocities that they were committing against people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Is that line of business?
That's correct.
Very good. Mr. Speaker, briefly to speak to this bill, my position on this has been clear for a long time, but I would urge passage of the bill, perhaps not even just for the economic reasons, though. Years ago on this floor, I stood almost in this seat and explained You can Google it. It's WV Metro News space antifreeze. And it detailed 6 deaths and a number of atrocities that'll keep you up at night. We then, 6 months later, paid in the Save Our Care appropriation during COVID an incredible amount of money just to retrain their folks, when in that report from the legislative auditor, it even claimed that they had falsified training records. And we went to great lengths to try to deal with some of the issues that we have here, but those agencies claimed that their licensed beds via the certificate of need process were a property right and we couldn't take it from them. Well, you can today. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
Is there further debate on the bill? Does the gentleman wish to close debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 23rd to close debate on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the questions. Want to clarify, this bill just takes out personal care services and IDD services out of the certificate of need process. These are not facility-based services. Number one, they're just, as the gentleman from the 25th asked the question, these are ADLs for the most part in personal care services. On IDD services, additionally, in the governor's proposed budget, there's an additional $9 million because he wants to clear half the wait list. It's well over 1,100 people right now on IDD waiver services. And my concern is that we would not have enough providers to provide the service when the wait list is hopefully cut because of the CON process. It is cumbersome. It does take multiple years. In an instance, over $100,000 in legal fees. Any affected person can file an appeal, all to provide these services to people that greatly need them in our rural communities. So for those reasons, Mr. Speaker, I urge passage of the bill.
Debate on the bill has been closed. The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will please close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. We had 94 ayes, 2 nays, and 3 members absent. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 5096.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Gentleman the first.
Mr. Speaker, move to make it effective for passage.
The question is on the motion that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the motion will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Gentleman the 90th, Doug Miller, your vote's not registered. Clerk will please close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There were 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 3 members absent. 2/3 of the members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill effective from passage. Clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Are there other bills on third reading? If not, bills on second reading.
House Bill 4106, allowing constitutional carry for 18 to 20-year-olds.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Hornbuckle moves to amend the bill. This is HFA Hornbuckle 2-16 revised.
The question before the House is the amendment as just read by the clerk. Are there objections to allowing the sponsor to explain the amendment? No objections are heard. Gentleman the 25th is recognized to explain the amendment.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, the genesis and rationale for this piece of legislation that is before us is that as West Virginians are old enough to be able to go serve our country, then they should be able to enjoy in our concealed carry program. I agree with that. And I agree with that because they would have had adequate and proper training. And my amendment does that. So for anyone that is below 21, if they are a part of our armed forces, then they are allowed to enjoy in this program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I reserve the right to close.
The question is on the amendment as read by the clerk and explained by the sponsor. Is there debate on the amendment? The gentleman from the 55th, Delegate Akers, is recognized on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the amendment sponsor yield to a question, please?
Yes, sir.
So if you look at the way this bill is written that we would be voting on third reading, if it were to pass as written, then everyone who is delineated under your amendment would be allowed to carry constitutionally. Those people would all be included. Isn't that accurate?
The folks who have or are currently in armed forces or state or local law enforcement would be able to carry. Yes, sir.
Right. So if your amendment were not adopted, those individuals named in your amendment, if this bill were to pass, they would still be included in constitutional carry from that point forward. That's true, correct?
That is true, given that there will be a lot more people in that pool. Yes, sir.
Okay, permission to speak to the amendment, Mr. Speaker?
If the gentleman has more questions for the sponsor?
No more
Okay,
questions.
if not, gentleman is from the 55th, Douglas Akers, is recognized on the amendment.
Yes, sir. I agree with the intent of the amendment sponsor, but if this bill were to pass as written, the amendment is actually unnecessary because everyone who's 18 and over, who's a member of the Armed Forces, Reserve, or National Guard, or serves as federal or state law enforcement would be included in the bill. My concern is that the gentleman's amendment could actually leave some other people out. If we don't name them, then some judge may think there's a reason why we didn't include them in the first place. The bill's cleaner as written. Everyone 18 plus will be allowed to constitutionally carry if the bill passes. I don't want to leave anyone out who should otherwise be included, so I urge rejection of the gentleman's amendment. I appreciate the intent, but I think it actually potentially could harm the bill.
Is there other debate on the amendment? If not, you'll recognize the sponsor, gentleman of the 25th, to close debate on the amendment.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment strengthens the bill. Without this amendment, it would allow for 18 to 20-year-olds the ability to conceal carry without any permit, training, or background checks. Now, if you will allow me really quick, these are the same 18-year-olds, the ones that are not a part of our armed services or law enforcement. These are the same 18-year-olds that most of us, we have a little bit of anxiety and worry about when they go off to college, thinking that they might put themselves in harm's way or make a wrong decision because of inexperience. These are the same 18-year-olds that we currently do not allow to consume alcohol legally because it impairs their judgment more because they are not mentally mature enough yet to be able to handle those instances. These are the same 18-year-olds that when they are paging with us, we quite literally walk them out of the chamber when subjects get a little too heavy, right? These are those same 18-year-olds that I believe, unless they have proper training and background checks, it would be a grave mistake if they're able to permitless carry. I would also note that since 2016, when we passed our concealed carry law, handgun deaths in the state of West Virginia have risen 45%. And so I think that should be noted here. And so this amendment is a great compromise to make sure that they're allowed to do so. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question is on the amendment as read by the clerk and explained by the sponsor. Debate's been closed. Roll call is requested on the amendment. Is the request sustained? Request is not sustained. Those in favor of adoption of the amendment will please say aye. Opposed will please say no. Okay, noes appear to have it. Okay, noes have it. Chair declares that amendment lost. Are there other amendments to the bill? If not, the bill be advanced to third reading. Clerk will please report the next bill on second reading.
House Bill 4419, requiring certain non-discretionary procedures be strictly complied with by the West Virginia Parkways Authority before tolls, rents, fees, or charges may be increased.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4452, to remove main restrictions on religious organizations.
Gentleman the first.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unanimous consent to commit to the Committee on Finance.
Gentleman the first asks unanimous consent that House Bill 4452 be committed to the Committee on Finance. Are there objections? No objections are heard. The bill will be committed to the Committee on Finance. Clerk will please report the next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4464, relating generally to underground facilities damage prevention.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4471, approve sewage systems for rental property.
For what purpose does the gentleman in the 88th Hillenbrand seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I apologize. Hearing things in this back corner is quite a challenge. I'm sure some of the staff is aware of this. I try all the time. I was not able to keep up with the conversation to object to the referring House Bill 4452 in time to object to moving that to finance. I'd like to object to that.
Okay, gentleman's objection can be noted, but the bill's been committed. Clerk will please report the next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4573, Foster Youth Post-Secondary Transition Awareness Act.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4592, relating to college campus safety.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4852 relating to regulation of foods.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4976 to add definitions for special plates of Class G vehicles.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4983 authorizing the Department of Commerce to promulgate a legislative rule relating to certification of microgrid district or certification as a high-impact data center.
Are there amendments?
Delegates Dillon and Anders move to amend the committee substitute. This HFA Dillon and Anders 2-6 number 1.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the chair is under the understanding that we do have 2 amendments that would be effectively competing amendments. So the chair will ask the clerk to report each of the 2 amendments. The sponsors will be afforded an opportunity to respond, or rather to explain each of the 2 amendments. We will open debate simultaneously on the amendments, then proceed with putting the question on each of the 2 amendments. Adoption of either would preclude further consideration of the other. So at this time, the clerk has reported the more comprehensive of the 2 amendments. This is HFA Dillon Anders 2-16 number 1. Are there objections at this time to allowing the sponsors to explain the amendment in lieu of having the amendment read? No objections are heard. Gentleman, the 29th, Doug Dillon is recognized to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since certain legislation was enacted last year, many of our constituents have expressed concerns about data centers in their communities. These concerns have included noise and proximity to homes, schools, and churches, potential depletion of groundwater or impact to surface water sources, a desire among citizens for timely notifications and transparency around data center applications, and to have a voice in the approval process. Concerns about data collection, privacy, and protection of constitutional rights in an age of rising technocracy. This amendment to HB 4983 includes reasonable provisions to address these concerns without hurting the purpose of the bill. The amendment further contains guardrails to prevent water wells on private property from being depleted by a thirsty data center withdrawing water from the same aquifer, to prevent negative impact to surface water. Surface water is easier to detect when impacts are made to it, but groundwater depletion can be more difficult to quantify until the aquifer, which might serve thousands of citizens, is significantly depleted. I've always had access to a well, grew up with a well. There's nothing like having an independent water supply. With the disruptions to our public water systems, which we know all too well can happen with frequency at any time, we're wise to protect our groundwater for those fortunate enough to have water wells. In addition, in this age where government and corporations alike are increasingly interested in monitoring and monetizing daily human activity, the amendment codifies that no data center can be used to gather information that would be in violation of the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution. The amendment also provides a 500-foot common sense buffer zone to ensure that high-impact data centers do not excessively affect core elements of society, such as homes, schools, and churches. Finally, the amendment restores a fundamental right of the people to know what is happening in their communities and to directly petition their government at all levels when they perceive a harm or injustice is imminent. The amendment provides local communities with timely notification when an application for a high-impact data center is filed, establishes a process by which citizens who believe their quality of life will be negatively and significantly impacted by a data center can challenge the application through a petition and put the question of approval to the ballot process in the area affected by the proposed data center. That is an explanation of the amendment, Mr. Speaker. I reserve the right to close.
Clerk will please report the second of the 2 amendments.
Delegates Hanson, Hornbuckle, Fluharty, Hamilton, Garcia, Lewis, Pushkin, Williams, and Young move to amend the bill. This is HFA Hanson et al. 2-16.
Chair will recognize the sponsor, gentleman from the 79th, Douglas Hanson, to explain the second of the two amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a rules bill, and it's related to rules about data centers, subject to House Bill 2014 that passed this body last year. And House Bill 2014 is a long bill. It has a lot to do with where these data centers are getting their electricity from, which is something that's definitely of public concern because we want to make sure that our electric rates don't go up. But what House Bill 2014 did not address in any way was where the data centers are getting their water from. And that's what this amendment seeks to address. In the state of West Virginia, there was no permit or prior approval required for any business or person to withdraw water. There was debate about that in this legislature before I was here, when the legislature passed the Water Resources Protection and Management Act. There's debate about whether there should be a permit required to withdraw water or no permit required. And the legislature decided, instead of instituting a permitting system, there would be reporting required, but the reporting would be after the fact. After the wells are drilled, after the intakes are built, after the water withdrawals have already occurred, then once a year, large water withdrawers would be responsible or required to report their water use to the state. So that's a good thing, but there's a loophole that this amendment seeks to address, and that loophole, like I said, is that there's no prior disclosure of where the water is coming from. So this amendment simply does that. It requires data centers, before they're approved and before they're built, to tell agencies where they're getting their water from. Is it coming from groundwater? Is it coming from surface water? If it's coming from surface water, is it coming from the Ohio River, or like a large river that could sustain that level of withdrawals like we may see in Basin County? Or is it coming from a small stream that might be impacted? And it requires a look at what current uses there are of the water and whether these large water withdrawals may impact current uses. Because data centers, depending on what technology they use, could withdraw millions and millions of gallons of water in a short period of time. This amendment is squarely within the boundaries of state code, so it's appropriate for this rulemaking bill. And I'll leave it at that. We had some bipartisan support for a similar bill in committee, a similar amendment in committee. This amendment is a little bit different, but I would hope we could get some bipartisan support for this as well. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I reserve the right to close.
So both of the two competing amendments have been explained by the sponsors. At this time, the chair will open the floor to debate on each of the two amendments. At the conclusion of debate, the chair will invite the sponsor of each of the two amendments to close debate on the two amendments. So at this time, is there debate on each of the two amendments? Chair will recognize the gentleman from the 29th, Douglas Dillon.
Would the gentleman from the 79th yield for question? I appreciate the amendment you're offering here. I have a small question. I see it calls for an assessment of potential water quality impact, and then later down it says the assessment will be reviewed and verified by the Department of Environmental Protection. Will the department be reviewing and verifying its own report, or who will conduct the assessment? It doesn't really specify.
Yeah, thank you for that question. First of all, just to clarify, this is an assessment related to water quantity, not water quality, because we already have permits in place for quality. But to your specific question about who does the assessment, this is in the part of the rule that requires the data center to provide certain information to the state in hopes of being certified as a high-impact data center. So it would be the data center itself who provides the information.
So the proposing data center would provide its own assessment. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. And would they be able to contract that out, or would that be kind of be left up to them, or what?
It would be up to them. I would assume that they would use some type of engineering or environmental consultant, but it would be entirely up to them.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 45th, Doggett Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman from Wayne yield?
Yes, sir.
On the prohibitions on groundwater and aquifer use, it has a prohibition on transporting groundwater by tanker. If one of these data centers wanted to come in and they found a source to purchase groundwater, would this bill prohibit them from even bringing it in from a different source where they might be sufficient reserves to not affect those in the local community? If it would help, I'm on, well, it's 22-26A-3.
Okay, so I think if we look at the general intent that's expressed in this section of code under this amendment, the idea here is that the water from the groundwater in that area, that's what would be protected from being transported by tank, if that makes sense. It's not, it wouldn't be cost effective to, haul in water from, 2 states away. That would be kind of precluded from the outset, I would think.
But with this amendment, even with that consideration being in place, it would be illegal to do that.
While that might be technically true, again, I can't imagine any set of circumstances in which that would be more cost effective than simply utilizing surface water from a stream in the general area.
Okay. Well, thank you for yielding. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 98th, Gentleman from the 45th, Doggett Brooks, concluded. Okay, gentleman from the 98th, Doggett Funkhauser.
Speaker, would the gentleman from the 79th yield for questions? Thank you. What is current law of West Virginia regarding water quantity usage of large quantity users? If, say, for example, some high-impact data center, uses groundwater and depletes the aquifer, what is the remedy there under current law?
Well, current law, there's no permit or prior approval required, so they can do whatever they want and develop the intake or the well. And then all that the Water Resources Protection Act requires is annual reporting on how much water was actually withdrawn.
Right, are you aware of current law of how it would address that situation? Because I think there's a lot of concerns over this bill and in these rules in particular of that concern where, we've had in Jefferson County, there was a water bottling facility proposed last year. Actually, it's before the Supreme Court because the Planning Commission denied it and that was upheld in Circuit Court. But there was concerns there of aquifer depletion because we have karst terrain there. It's a little different than most of the rest of West Virginia. So my understanding is there's the common law fair use doctrine is the remedy in that instance. Is that correct?
I mean, given that you're an attorney who's worked in this field, I would defer to your interpretation of that. I'm just saying there's no explicit permitting program in the state of West Virginia, so it would be some other type of remedy than a permit violation.
Well, I'm not a water expert by any means, and I thought you were, so that's why I'm asking you about this. The quantity thing that on your proposed amendment to these rules, would that prevent any aquifer depletion on your proposed amendment?
My amendment is not a black and white amendment that bans anything or that would stop development necessarily. What it is a transparency amendment that requires the disclosure up front of what the impacts are likely to be to our water. And now, whether having a transparency requirement might impact whether a data center builds or not builds, that's possible. But what it does require is an analysis and some type of verification up front. So the intent of it is not to stop data centers, because there's lots of data centers that could come in and withdraw, say, from the Ohio River where there's plenty of water. The intent is to make sure that serious consideration is given up front to make sure that they're not impacting other water users.
Okay, thank you for your questions. Mr. Speaker, I have a point of order as well. The primary amendment seeks to amend West Virginia Code, and this is a rules bill. Is that appropriate?
Well, they're both primary amendments.
Well, the First Amendment that was, that's just my point of order. I don't know the answer, and that's why I'm asking of
Well, the chair reviewed both of the amendments, and it is a rules bill. This is a situation that does not often arise. Gentleman's question is well-founded, and the chair is not absolutely certain that either amendment is germane, but we'll entertain a vote on them. In the absence of certainty, we'll entertain a vote on them.
Thank you, Mr.
Is there other debate on the bill, or excuse me, on the two amendments? Gentleman from 97th, Douglas Anders, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to speak to the amendments.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you. You know, I wasn't going to speak on these, but the more I thought about it, I realized I had to. I'm, of course, speaking in support of the amendment offered by my good friend from the 29th, because his amendment basically incorporates why we're here. We're all here for two big reasons. First of which is we swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States. And his amendment addresses that directly so that none of these data centers can continue to be used to violate the Fourth Amendment and to put George Orwell back in his box. Not only that, but we also serve our constituents. Our constituents, since House Bill 2014 passed, have been blowing up my email and my phone. My constituents are very, very concerned. They're worried about their private wells being drained by these data centers, and the amendment just simply says you can't use groundwater to do this. Fairly simple. Most data centers now have moved beyond doing that, but it's not written in black and white in the rules, which is why it needs to be in the rules. They have moved to non-water liquid cooling, they've moved to different types of cooling, but we want to be sure that they just can't locate one of these data centers and dry property owners' wells, and just putting it in black and white matters. Also, it addresses the right of self-determination. The right of self-determination, as you all know, was one of the key principles of our Declaration of Independence, that the people can decide what happens in their lives, in their government, in their area, in their communities. And this amendment reinforces that to allow the local people to decide, is this something that they want to have happen? And finally, most of us know that all of our constituents in West Virginia, the largest investment they will ever make will be the purchase of their homes. And the buffer zone is to ensure that a data center is not dropped right beside someone's home, their biggest investment they'll ever make in their life, and devalue it. So I highly encourage my colleagues to support the gentleman from the 29th Amendment. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 72nd, Douglas Riley, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman from the 79th yield? But don't.
Does the gentleman from the 79th yield for a question?
Gentleman from the 79th yield? Thank you, my friend. I understand. Quick question. You said that there is no permit required for any water withdrawal in the state of West Virginia related to water quantity. Is that?
Are you going to bring up the?
I'm going to bring up wells.
Okay?
So if you were going to drill a well, does that require a permit?
Well, I'm talking about state permits, state agencies. Yep.
Does a well require a state permit from the West Virginia Bureau of Public Health?
All right, we can go down that route.
Well, and that's the question. Does it require a well permit?
Yes.
Okay. So in order to get a well permit, you have to identify distances to streams, lot lines, et cetera. Is that fair?
Well, I mean, those permits don't look into impacts on other water users. Do they?
We'll get to that. So you have to have a certified well driller, correct? In order to drill a well in the state of West Virginia, you have to be a certified well driller.
Okay.
So under CS 64 CSR 19, you have to have, it has the registration for the well drillers and the certification. It also protects health and contaminants, and we're going to get to water quantity. So you can't drill a well unless there's a permit by a master well driller. So as you move on to CSR 60 or 64 CSR 46, you have to do a well test, correct? In order to receive a permit?
You tell me. You're
The
looking
answer
at,
is yes.
You're looking at the rule.
Well, no, I did make my notes, yes. So in order to receive a permit, you have to have the pumping capacity of the well has to be determined by the certified well driller. In order to determine the well capacity, there has to be a hydrogeologic study. Is that correct? I don't want to.
I'm not looking at the rule.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I'll speak to the bill, Mr. Speaker. As it relates
to the amendments.
Yes, the
Questions
amendments.
on the
I'm sorry.
amendments. Gentleman's recognized on the amendments.
I would urge rejection of both amendments for various reasons, but I'll boil it down to there are protections for water quality and quantity, specifically as it comes to wells. So in order to drill a well, you have to be a certified well driller. In order to get a permit for the well, you have to do a water analysis and a well study, a hydrogeologic study, which allows you to drill a test well. It then allows you to do a step-down test, a water withdrawal test, which shows the impact on the aquifer, in which that case the well driller also monitors other wells in the area. So you begin to look at what the actual yield rate of that well will be. So very specifically when it comes to wells, there is a requirement for what that yield will be, what the impact on the wells will be, and what the impact on other water quality, other water quantity, should say, sources. So are you getting it from a stream? Is it a groundwater under the direct influence? So there are well reports, there are those types of things. As it moves into a stream, you also get into the fact that if you're going to build a water intake, you just don't lay a pipe down into the water. You actually build an intake, which then requires you to get a 404 permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. When you do that, you have to submit your plans that show the design, how much water you're going to take out, and if you're going to get an Army Corps permit, it then triggers a NEPA nexus, of which you then have to have a determination of no aquatic impact, finding of no significant impact, a FONSI. So to simply say that there is zero analysis or zero opportunity or zero permit as it comes, I don't believe is correct. The gentleman is correct that they had the debate in 2015 about getting a water withdrawal permit, and 2226 does not require that. It requires exactly what he said, to report if you use 300,000 gallons over a 30-day period. But to simply say that there are zero permits, I don't believe is a fallacy. And for that, Mr. Speaker, I urge rejection of both amendments.
Gentleman, the 11th, like a Fehrenbacher is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the delegate from the 79th yield for a question?
Yes.
Sir, I see your amendment, and I acknowledge the point you made that today there is no permit requirement to disclose withdrawals. Is there, however, a permit requirement for discharges?
Yes, there is.
So if you will, independent of where the water came from, the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection is going to look at where the water goes once it leaves one of these facilities, correct?
It depends on where the water goes. If it's discharged to a surface water and includes pollutants, then a permit would be required for the water quality aspect of the discharge.
Right, so, but under that case, that surface water is likely to be what? A stream, a river?
That's what a surface water is, yep.
Yes, okay. So then, that doesn't seem to be as much an issue, or at least in my perspective, about the disclosure of the withdrawal impacting groundwater. Is that correct? If they're going to take it out of a stream, they're going to put it back to a stream under that scenario. Is that correct?
That's the information we're trying to understand by having this information submitted up front. There's a difference between withdrawal, use, and return, right?
True.
Some amount of the water that's withdrawn could be used, some amount can be returned.
But regardless of whether or not they return that to a stream or they pump it back underground, they have to submit a permit, which involves also public comment on how they're planning on discharging the water that they have used in their facility, correct?
The permit is related to water quality, not water quantity, but I would agree to that extent.
But is it your contention that in those permit processes, they don't talk about quantities?
Limitation, these are permits under the Clean Water Act, right? So the point of these permits are to make sure that water quality standards are not violated.
Okay.
And those water quality standards are based on water quality, contaminants in the water.
Okay. One last question. What's your understanding of what the typical water consumption might be for a microgrid or a data center? Do you have any read in the literature or anything about consumption?
Well, I did want to clarify, this amendment's about the data centers, not about the microgrids, so it's not
Fair
about
point.
the power plants. I mean, millions of gallons, and it depends on the technology. There are technologies that have been used in the past, and there are emerging technologies that could be used that use a whole lot less water.
Okay. Millions of gallons of water per year?
No, a much shorter time period than that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Will a delegate from the 22nd yield to a question?
Yes.
Sir, I believe in testimony in committee you talked about some of the chips that are currently available and the cooling that is done to keep those chips functional. Would you repeat that for the rest of the body?
Yes, for the benefit of the body. Typically, these chips that are used in these supercomputers, that's what they are GPUs, not CPUs, but I don't want to go too in-depth there. But at the beginning of this year, at what's known as the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Nevada, it's held there every year, the chief executive officer of the most valuable company on the planet pointed out that you can now cool all of their chips in their next generation using 113 degree Fahrenheit water or 45 degrees Celsius.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. That's all. For those of you that may not be familiar with it, having spent 40 years in the chemical industry, I can tell you that, frankly, you would not be permitted to discharge water that started at 113 degrees Fahrenheit and then got warmer as you were cooling something down. So there would be treatment of that water in one of these facilities before you discharged it. And from a water conservation standpoint, I bet that most of the users would basically cool that water down or frankly find some type of technology to use the heat in that water for energy purposes. Think of like a heat pump in at a house. What that then would yield is, frankly, recycling of water and perhaps some losses through evaporative cooling, okay? So for that reason, I believe that the amendment from the delegate from the 79th should be rejected. And now I'd like to shift my focus to the other primary amendment. when I look at the amendment, if I look at the latter part, because the first nominally 8 pages of the amendment restates portions of House Bill 2014, which by and large most of us voted on, last year. So what the amendment is frankly some very significant changes which we are being asked to make a decision here having looked at this amendment. I don't know about you, but there are some very significant changes in the section 22, a whole new section which goes back and basically amends the water resource program that the legislature put into place, I believe in 2004. Requiring all sorts of things, which I don't believe in today's discussion, in the minutes that we've had today, we fully comprehend and can adequately make a decision on. It was not part of the discussion of 2014. It was not included in the deliberations by the Joint Legislative Rulemaking Review Committee. They are very significant, and I believe that if they are taken up, deserves the full body of discussion, debate, testimony by experts. There is information that is available today, and do you know what the single largest source of groundwater use is in our state? Agriculture. I am not ready, nor do I feel able to vote in support of this amendment because of the implication that may be unintended consequences to the agricultural community in our state, which consumes about 45% of the groundwater that is withdrawn from our resources. Lastly, and this is somewhat in support of the delegate from the 79th, House Bill 4983 is whether or not we support the Rule 145 CSR 20, which is coming from the Department of Commerce regarding their role in approving, reviewing microgrids and data centers. Some of the amendment from the delegate from the 29th, 29th, affects the DEP, and I frankly think whether or not it has merits is a secondary question, but I don't feel fully informed, nor would I encourage us to rush to judgment and support the amendment. I believe the safeguards in the bill and the rule are sufficient, and I would urge rejection of the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the second, Douglas Zeteselo is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This rules bundle bill is for the Department of Commerce. It's my understanding that the Department of Commerce is not a scientific organization. They are an organization that is looking to attract business to our state. Their rules are addressing that. The amendments that we have before us, well, I think well-intentioned, also would, if passed, get into different parts of the code, not the rule, not the commerce rule, into the code. And what am I talking about? Economic development, utilities, environmental laws, elections, surveillance policy, and federal policy. This for a rules bill for commerce intended to take a first look at data centers and ask some questions and make sure they get some answers for introductory looks at these things. Hydrogeologic work is difficult. It takes a lot of time. I made a comment. The Commerce Department said they would like to make a decision within 2 weeks. The gentleman from the 72nd can probably tell you for a detailed environmental and hydrogeologic study, you might get a proposal in 2 weeks. So, what are we left with? Rightfully, we looked at the form that the Commerce Department wants prospective data center developers to fill out and make sure they adhere to some of the points so they can make a decision whether the data center is actually a serious place or not so serious. One thing that was absent, no doubt about it, was any hydrogeologic discussion whatsoever in that form. Since then, and I think the committee, while it was doing its work, said you need to do these things. They have responded to that, and they have a draft that has started to ask questions about water use, quantity, that type of thing. I took a look at it just before this session. It's still a work in progress, but it is in the works for the Commerce Department. That is reasonable for a first look at data centers, which is all this is. Hydrogeologic studies, the kinds of which are called out here, are for permitting activities, which they must adhere to as well. They have to adhere to permitting with the DEP, not only for water. They're going to need to do air, noise, and a couple other things. This is not the place for a detailed amendment that touches at least 5 parts of code and changes them. I think we ought to stick with the plan as it is. I think both of these amendments need to be rejected since the move is on, and believe me, there are people calling the Commerce Department right now, and all of them are singing with one voice, including the governor's and the legislature, that they must address water in their basic questionnaire that the people have to develop in this opening round of data center selection. So for those reasons, I would suggest rejecting both amendments, and I'll be glad to give the body an update on what the Commerce Department has done because of our committee work. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge rejection of both amendments.
Gentleman from the 17th, Douglas Penson, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman from the 29th yield for a few questions?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. A few questions for you. You've heard mention from a few delegates here that we're dealing really with a rules bundle in which we're adding some pretty severe regulations surrounding data centers. So I feel necessary just to ask you very candidly your opinion on data centers.
My opinion on data centers.
Yeah, are you for them or against them?
I feel like that's actually further beyond the pale and scope of this debate than what's before you in the legislation.
Well, the amendment that you have proposed...
Mr. Speaker, point of inquiry, is this line of questioning germane?
You don't have to yield to it.
Just asking for a ruling.
So the amendment that you proposed levels some very serious regulations specifically on data centers. That's why I asked the question.
Right, because we don't have other industries potentially impacting communities in these ways.
Not like your amendment proposes. I'll get to that in a moment. So do you want to answer the question about your position on data centers or not?
I do not have a specific position on data centers, and that is not what this amendment is targeted to address, whether data centers are good or bad.
So if a data center were to locate in Wayne, would you be in favor of that or no?
I would have to look at the proposal and see exactly what we would be talking about.
Okay.
I'm trying to broaden this far beyond the scope of the actual amendment.
Okay, well, let's get to the scope of the amendment then. Do you believe that if your is adopted, that it would place more severe regulations on data centers and the build out of data centers than any other industry in the state of West Virginia?
Data centers are unique in the ways in which they potentially impact local communities, so that there should be provisions which are unique to addressing those circumstances.
So the answer would be yes.
I don't think it was a yes or no question.
Do you believe your amendment places more severe regulations on data centers than any other industry in the state of West Virginia?
I would have to see some criteria on that for how you would quantify that opinion.
Okay, let's talk about that criteria. Do you realize that your amendment is an absolute ban for data centers on any groundwater usage for cooling, period?
Yes, sir.
Do you also realize that there's not another industry in the state of West Virginia that we have such an absolute ban for groundwater usage, period? No exception, no permit to apply for, just an all-out ban. There's not another industry in the state of West Virginia that we do that for.
I'll take your word for it.
Do you realize that there's a strong possibility your amendment is unconstitutional for that very reason based on the Equal Protection Clause?
Any piece of legislation passed by the legislature is presumed constitutional unless it's challenged.
So the answer is yes.
I didn't hear a yes or no question there, but okay.
Do you believe that your amendment is unconstitutional?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you for yielding. Mr. Speaker, just briefly, I would urge rejection of the gentleman's amendment. I think my colleagues from the 2nd and the 11th and the 72nd District have done a very eloquent job as to explaining why the gentleman from the 79th District's amendment should be rejected. I just offer a few based on the gentleman from the 29th District's amendment. Again, I believe that we're placing burden here on this business that we have not placed on any other business, any other economic development opportunity in the state of West Virginia. I do understand that they're unique. However, also I understand that data centers can be done right. We have seen nationally where they've been done wrong, but also believe that they can be done correctly. This piece of legislation creates, or this amendment rather, creates some very arbitrary, targeted obstacles for data centers that really just sends the message, we don't want a single data center in the state of West Virginia. We would become more regulated and more tight than any other state in the nation in relation to this industry. It creates a 500-foot buffer zone that's arbitrary at best. There's no engineering to justify this. There's no scientific basis that's cited. There's no variance mechanism. And then not only do we say that they're not allowed to access groundwater at all, period, end of discussion, but then further in the gentleman's amendment, there's an automatic denial based on, quote, potential, end quote, aquifer impact. So just the potential that it might negatively affect an aquifer would cause a denial of a data center to be built. Now, the interesting thing about that is in the amendment that the gentleman's offered, the word potential is not defined at all. So what I might think is a potential impact and somebody else might think is a completely different potential impact would be reason for data centers to be forced out of state. In short, Mr. Speaker, 2014, House Bill 2014 last year was passed by this legislature and signed into law as an opportunity to create business, create jobs, create revenue for the state of West Virginia. And I can tell you that there's a significant amount of people in this state who are excited about the opportunity. However, the gentleman's amendment, it adds an arbitrary referendum risk. It bans the groundwater usage completely. It adds automatic denial triggers. And as I said earlier, this amendment does not just regulate responsibility, it prohibits the industry altogether. I would urge rejection of the gentleman's amendment, and I would urge passage of House Bill 4983 as a clean bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 10th, Anderson's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise, first of all, to ask the body to reject both amendments. Having a farm, I don't believe in plowing a field twice, but there are some points that have been made by previous speakers I feel the need to reiterate. The First Amendment offered the gentleman from the 29th, in my opinion, as I search, exceeds the scope of the original bill or the original rule that was put forth by the Rulemaking Review Committee. It gets into areas in that, excuse me, it gets into areas where in the scope in some areas not contemplated in the original legislation. In my opinion, and I did not raise a point of order on this, but it rewrites multiple laws inside a rules bill. The one thing that concerns me greatly is the provisions of the bill that mandates that local referendums have to be held in the counties to decide whether the people want it or not. That is an unfunded mandate upon our counties in this state. I will move to addressing the Second Amendment offered by the gentleman from the 79th. This amendment largely was considered in the Energy and Public Works Committee and rejected by a vote of 12-8, as I recall, in our committee. It assesses the favorite topic here that we have, and I think it's an important topic that needs to be addressed, and that is try to assess the potential water quality impacts. And I would point out to the body that gentlemen from the Eastern Panhandle raised the concern, especially with groundwater withdrawals, and under the Water Resources Protection and Management Act of 2008, that any industrial, commercial, or mining withdrawal of 300,000 gallons in a 30-day period must be reported to the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection. And they are required to report this. So we do have a method of assessing in this state large withdrawals. And the testimony before the concerns raised in the committee's consideration of this rules bill, one thing that was raised with the Department of Commerce was a concern about the potential withdrawal of water. And we reinforced to the Department of Commerce, as previously mentioned by the Vice Chair, that he has seen the form they are developing as part of the practice of locating a possible data center in this state. They will be required and make some assessment as to their source of water. Now, depending upon the technology used in the data centers, if we're talking about withdrawing water if it's an excessive amount, they're going to evaluate that in deciding whether or not to issue the necessary required permits allowing that withdrawal. If along the Ohio River or the Kanawha River, which is an abundant source of water in this state, it has the potential to build to withdraw from the river. And if you have a closed loop system there, that once they have the initial withdrawal and they're not returning the water back to the river, then we will not have the massive withdrawals that some people think is going to happen. I think in parts of the state where people are concerned about groundwater, that is a legitimate concern. And I've previously said legislation is on the books requiring anybody withdrawing more than 300,000 gallons a month to report that to the Department of Environmental Protection. Those reports will be available to the Department of Commerce or anybody else in evaluating the potential for data center development of this state. But ladies and gentlemen of the House, this debate, I believe, has a chilling effect on people looking at this state and potentially wanting to invest here, create jobs here, and build a future for the young people of West Virginia. As a retired educator, I have seen many of my former students. They could open alumna sections from people who have graduated from the school where I taught in Wood County, either in Columbus, Ohio, or Charlotte, North Carolina. I would like to bring them home if they want to come home. And I believe the possible development of data centers, the creation of the construction jobs, the creation of the tax revenue that is very important for the counties and the state and the future of our state. I can tell you in my most recent one, we presently in this state generate approximately 17 gigawatts of electricity. We use about 11 gigawatts in the state. As a gentleman from the 2nd District pointed out previously, which of our power plants do you want to shut down if we do not export some electricity? But I think even better than exporting electricity in this state is to use it in the state, employing West Virginians and attracting people to return to this state and invest in the future of this state. We see our universities willing to step up, both WVU, Marshall, and the other universities in our state. We have community and technical colleges that can provide qualified applicants for whatever field is needed to add to the development of this state. And we have a fundamental choice to make here. Are we going to say the sky is falling, and all the bad things that could come? Or are we going to look at, as Benjamin Franklin said many years ago in the debate over the Constitutional Convention, whether the sun was rising or setting? And I think we see a potential rising sun in this state for additional economic development. And the governor has told us he wants to get us to where we are generating 50 gigawatts by the year 2050 in this state. We've seen the recent addition of gas-fired power plants being announced in the state to burn Marcellus gas here. That is a good thing. But it's going to produce additional electricity. I don't want to export it to our sister state of Virginia for the data centers there. I want to see them built in West Virginia. I want to see this potential development in West Virginia and the creation of jobs for a brighter future for our state, for all of our citizens. For that reason, I encourage the rejection of both the gentleman's amendment from the 29th and the gentleman's amendment from the 79th. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 54th, Dr. Pushkin's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was listening to the argument, that these amendments could have a chilling effect on investment in the state, and what really has had a chilling investment on investment in the state and people wanting to stay here and work here and raise a family here is the fact that many parts of this state don't have clean water right now. Talk about the sky is falling. The sky has fallen directly on the heads of many of our constituents, and they've had enough. They've had enough, and this is about protection of the people who sent us here.
Gentleman from the 35th, Doug Vance, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman from the 2nd yield for a couple questions?
Yes.
Thank you. In your opinion, do you feel that the amendment from the gentleman from the 29th would ban total data centers from coming into West Virginia?
It was what? I didn't hear.
The amendment from the gentleman from the 29th, do you feel it would totally ban data centers from coming into West Virginia?
There are items in there that would certainly make it very, very, very difficult.
Okay. And do you feel that the amendment from the gentleman from the 79th would ban data centers from coming into the state of West Virginia?
That's a little bit different, but I think the gentleman from the 79th, both of them are asking for details that are not part of this rules bundle. As a matter of fact, I mean, we're not talking about the kind of studies that you need to do the work necessary to make a final determination. That's not what the rules bundle is intended to do. We're looking, it's a more of a 20,000-foot level look at data centers. When you get into the permitting, you're down at ground level. And so basically, we're talking about two different functions. And so I don't want to belittle the need to get a good handle on groundwater use and what the effects are. I think that's wise, but I don't know that in 2 weeks, I don't think that's something that we can do, nor should we. We should be looking at serious people, and we can tell from some of their answers on these forms that they must fill out, which will include water discussion. You can find out whether they're serious or not, and that's what the Commerce Department, their rules are attempting to do.
Okay, under our current code that we have, or any laws that we have in place right now, does it cover these data centers checking to see how much water they will use or how they'll treat it or anything like that?
It's part of the permitting effort that you must go through. Like I said, you have to look at air permits, you have to look at noise permits, you look at it all. Okay. And those laws are in place. They may not be looking for exactly the things that you might want in this bill, but that doesn't preclude them from being asked for from the applicant.
Okay. All right, thank you. Can I speak to the amendment?
Yes, gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. Or the amendments. While I sympathize with the gentleman from the 29th, I understand where he's coming from. I mean, we definitely don't want anything coming in. He's in a county that's in dire need. They just had the transformer spill into the water over there. They had an emergency situation. We have one in Wyoming County. A lot of the southern part of the state has water issues, so it's okay for us to have concerns and questions about water and water quantities and water qualities, and I'm glad the discussions are brought up. However, on that amendment, if it is a complete and total ban, I don't see how we can act on that accordingly and put that into play. Maybe some legislation down the road to remedy what's going on and to correct situations as far as water. As far as the gentleman from the 79th Amendment, I'm going to have to support it just because I feel like we need to know how much water is being brought out, how much water it will affect as far as the people in our area. I think there's one already planned to go in Mingo County right now. And I want to put this on record and saying I voted for the bill and I am in favor of the economic development of data centers and things of that sort. But I also feel like that there should be some safeguards instead of just coming in and willy-nilly letting them take all of our water and putting even more harmful things out there just because we want a business to come in. And I'm not saying anybody in here is doing that. I'm just saying that we need to look at those and understand the concerns that other people have and why they have those concerns. So I will be in support of the gentleman from the 79th, but I will reject the gentleman from the 29th. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 22nd, Doug Linville is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman from the 79th yield to a question? Yes. Thank you to my friend. So in committee, you had agreed to remove the commanding the DEP to take some particular action because this was fashioned in a bundle for the Department of Commerce. Can you help me understand why you decided to switch back to having the Department of Environmental Protection be commanded to do something in a rule that's promulgated by the Department of Commerce?
Yeah, a couple of reasons. One is that they're the people with the best expertise to review this type of information. Sure. But probably the more important reason is that council did some legal research into other West Virginia rules that are promulgated by one
I feel like we need to know how much water is being brought out, how much water it will affect as far as the people in our area. I think there's one already planned to go in Mingo County right now. And I want to put this on record and saying I voted for the bill and I am in favor of the economic development of data centers and things of that sort. But I also feel like that there should be some safeguards instead of just coming in and willy-nilly letting them take all of our water and putting even more harmful things out there just because we want a business to come in. And I'm not saying anybody in here is doing that. I'm just saying that we need to look at those and understand the concerns that other people have and why they have those concerns. So I will be in support of the gentleman from the 79th, but I will reject the gentleman from the 29th. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 22nd, Doug Linville is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman from the 79th yield to a question? Yes. Thank you to my friend. So in committee, you had agreed to remove the commanding the DEP to take some particular action because this was fashioned in a bundle for the Department of Commerce. Can you help me understand why you decided to switch back to having the Department of Environmental Protection be commanded to do something in a rule that's promulgated by the Department of Commerce?
Yeah, a couple of reasons. One is that they're the people with the best expertise to review this type of information. Sure. But probably the more important reason is that council did some legal research into other West Virginia rules that are promulgated by one agency and have requirements for other agencies and found that there was precedent.
Is that at the department level or is that at the sub-agency level? Is that at the department level or the division level or the office level? where you found.
At the department level, similar to what's being proposed in this amendment.
Okay. Do you agree that there's a very tight time frame here, and that your amendment requires verification of studies put forward?
Are you referring to the 14-day timeline?
Yes.
Yeah, this would have to be done quickly in order to meet that timeline.
Okay, and there's a requirement in the rule that a high-impact data center submit their application, right, to be so certified within, forgive me, I think it's 30 days or so, if they knew or reasonably should have known that they were going to meet that minimum 90 megawatt requirement. Is that your understanding of the pre-existing rule?
I'd have to go back and check it to
Well,
be sure.
so my key point there is that within 30 days or so, these folks would be required to come up with these hydrogeological studies as indicated by the gentleman from the second, and then the government would have 14 days to verify them. Do you think that if you're, as written, that if your amendment were adopted, that we would find ourselves in a position where it would literally preclude any high-impact data center from ever being so certified if your amendment were adopted?
No, I do not agree with that.
Can you explain to me why? Do you not agree about the 30-day timeline and the rule that you're amending?
I think that any entity that's proposing a high-impact data center in West Virginia should be aware of the code and should be aware of the rules, and if they need to set things in motion earlier than that, in order to make
I just
sure
want
they
to ask,
comply
because
with the rules,
are they
they'll
going
do
to
that.
miracle a study in 30 days? Because they are required by the rule and by the underlying law to have, within 30 days of knowing that they would meet the total power consumption requirement, to submit for this certification. Would you agree?
I didn't hear that question.
They are required by the code and the rule as put forward to submit for this certification, right, that you're seeking to add an additional requirement to, within 30 days of knowing that they would be at least 90 megawatts. Would you agree that that is the underlying requirement that's in the rule?
Like I said, I would need to review that 30-day assertion that you're making.
Okay,
I
I'm
have
just
that in
making
front
sure
of
that
me.
we understood the amendment there. Thank you to you. All right, to my friend, and I do mean this, the gentleman from the 29th, would you yield for a couple of questions?
I'm your Huckleberry.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so I'm looking through your amendment, and I understand the items that you're trying to go through here. Let me put you on, if you could pull this up, 22, your proposed new 2226A-6. So this is monitoring, metering, and transparency. And this says all data centers shall do these things. So you just let me know when you're there, okay. So first, your definition in here of a data center is not just those that hit that 90 megawatts or greater number. This is any and all data center that stores, processes, or otherwise holds information.
I can see the point.
Okay, so well, one of my concerns there would be that the requirement that's placed here potentially could fall onto literally small businesses or even maybe your house. But beyond that, that it could fall onto pre-existing data centers that we have here and that are not really the ones that are subject of the primary concern as put forward. I'm just asking if that is in fact the intent.
The intent is to ensure that a data center proposing to locate within the state of West Virginia cannot set up withdrawal water without any oversight and potentially impact citizens in that community. That's the intent.
Okay.
As I read and as I hear the testimony and the debate about the rules and all that, I don't hear any specifics from anyone in this body about any provisions which currently apply. I hear discussion about, well, we have this provision over here in code and we have this other provision over there in code, and maybe they'll apply to the data centers and maybe they won't.
Sure. Okay, so again, swords aren't out, right? I'm trying to work with you. Okay?
We're good.
All right. So it does say, though, that each and every one of them will allow unannounced inspections. So that's in number 3, 22, 26A, 6, 3, in your proposed amendment.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm not trying to be technical here or any of those things, right? I'm not trying to ask who would do those inspections or some of those various things, right? But would you agree that if, for instance, the FBI had a data center in the state of West Virginia, that we could run into issues with the supremacy clause, because they do, right? Saying that, hey, the state now gets to gain entry to your FBI data center at will, unannounced.
That would have to be taken up in the, potentially, if there was such a conflict, that would have to be decided in a court somewhere.
And even if there were private ones that were working on it, any number of things, right? Typically, access to these data centers and specifically to the water systems and things of that nature are held pretty close to the vest. I mean, would you agree, or more specifically, would you agree that there's a typical reason why there'd be controlled access to these facilities? Again, I'm not trying to play technical or anything like that. But could you see the concern sometimes with access to the facility itself physically?
Not sure I'm there with you on this one. Okay. I think the assumption would be that anyone who would be conducting an inspection would be an authorized representative of the West Virginia government. So,
okay. Okay. I'll work through the next one. So I'm on 2226A7, 3. I think 3. No, 2226A7B. Not 3. Just let me know when you got there. So under here, this is an aquifer protection and pre-construction review, and I think you meant to have A there at the first in order to create this subdivision B. But A has prior to construction, and there's 3 things that they have to submit. B says, if any study indicates potential aquifer impact, the permit shall be denied. And that's not necessarily about drawing water from an aquifer. That would simply just say that if, hey, you added more water to the groundwater and that seeped into the aquifer, if any study, not even necessarily a governmental study or one put forward by the entity itself, the permit applicant itself, would you agree that that would say that if there's any impact on any aquifer, that any study claims that your permit would be entirely denied?
is the context of this section having to do with applications for
construction?
Yeah. So I believe that it would be within that context specifically.
Right. Okay. So if you're seeking a construction permit, if any study from anyone claims any impact whatsoever on an aquifer at all, you would be completely denied the ability to construct. So the reason why I'm getting here is that there were members that said that your amendment would, if adopted, amount to an outright ban on data centers in the state of West Virginia. I'm pointing to that as perhaps one of the key fatal flaws that are in here that would lead to that. Would you agree?
Not necessarily.
Okay. 22-26A-9, no preemption of property rights. And you've got number 3, loss of property value. Would you agree that if a private property owner were going to sell his or her property for maybe a whole lot of money, for a data center, for instance, to site a data center there, right, that you are creating a cause of action for them for loss of property value because now they can't have that development purpose?
I don't know that I accept the premise here,
okay,
that we're denying anyone from an opportunity to develop a data center. I think we're only establishing guardrails in the event that an individual or a company wants to establish a data center.
Okay. Okay. I won't hit on that one too hard. I'd like to get now into chapter 24, which now goes from how you build it instead into whether or not you could for what purpose you can use this thing that you've built. Would you agree that that's what's really going on here in Chapter 24 with the Public Service Commission?
With regard to the Fourth Amendment protections, I would certainly hope that we would codify and enforce to the fullest extent our Fourth Amendment protections for our citizens.
Very supportive of the Fourth Amendment, incredibly supportive of the Fourth Amendment. But I'm going to ask you, because you're talking about a downstream use of a product as compared to the product itself, right? So I'm going to ask here, so when you go into warrantless collection of metadata and things like that, could you see the analog if we were to say, hey, if you're a gun manufacturer, your guns cannot be used for X purpose, right? Because you're talking about a downstream purpose of the product or service.
I don't know that those two things are analogous.
Well, let me give you another one. If you're a coal producer and we sold coal as for instance, to China, should we tell our coal producers that you can't export coal to China?
Again, we're talking about apples and orangutans here.
We're talking about downstream utilization, right?
We're discussing in this tremendous colloquy here a physical product which is leaving a premises and going somewhere else where the person who sold that product has no control over what's done with it from that point forward.
Well, is that not also true in the digital world, right? You've got a bank of computers that are processing information. You've got a customer that's using them to process information. You may not even have the visibility into what that customer is using it for.
I believe that in the vast majority of cases, data center operators are well aware of who their clients are, or at least they should be. And if they're not, then there's a deficiency right there. But we need to know that they're aware of how the data is being collected, what it's being used for, and we have, as a state government, we have an interest in protecting the rights of our citizens. And you know, if you don't like the way this is phrased, then I can understand that.
It's the means or method, but I'll stop questioning you there. I appreciate the respectful colloquy. I'm just trying to go sort of understand that back and forth. So thank you very much for that. My friends, look, this has gotten very, very long, but I want to go into sort of what this means and why I was asking those questions. First, I'm going to ask opposition to the two amendments. The first, because of issues that have already been stated here. The first from the gentleman from the 79th. I think we've had a hydrogeologist discuss that and various others, and so I think you can feel pretty confident. I think the gentleman from the 72nd also pointed out the reasons that we will have information surrounding the permits, including federal ones, withdrawal of water and redeposit of that water back. I think the gentleman from the 11th even discussed the differences in temperature of that water and when you can redeposit that, as if, for instance, back into an aquifer. So I'm going to turn my attention now to what was put forward from our good friend, the gentleman from Wayne. And I do mean that. He and I have been able to work together on a number of items, and so I'd appreciate folks giving him the time to put this forward. And Mr. Speaker, I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to have this discussion today, regardless of the perhaps questions surrounding germaneness to the underlying bill. But I want to point out that when we're placing regulations, and I understand folks' concerns, right? But if someone were concerned that the earth is flat, you would not ask the Federal Aviation Administration to make sure that on all routes you didn't go too far west that you fell off the planet. Okay? So let's talk about what actually is going on here. What actually is going on here is one of the biggest economic development opportunities in the state of West Virginia's history. In the state of West Virginia's history. You know, and right now, we're broadcasting from this building with your government dollars onto YouTube, right? And guess where all that's stored? A data center. There's going to be a lot of comments and quotes and shares on using services that all rely upon data centers. There's going to be news articles and things like that and entirely online publications that are entirely reliant upon data centers.
If you want to put out a mean tweet, going through a data center. You want to share a post on Facebook? Data center. There's probably members of this body who get paid by companies that are entirely reliant upon data centers. And no, I don't mean our IT folks, I mean our influencers. By the way, every last one of your campaigns advertises on data centers. I hope you're not paying Facebook if you're against data centers. I hope you're not paying for X if you're against data centers. I hope you're not paying for online ads of any kind if you're against data centers. It's really simple, okay? So now I want to pull up a calculator that I created for high-impact data centers. And I'm going to go first to Wayne County. And I'm going to tell you what a 1 gigawatt data center would mean for Wayne County, West Virginia. In Wayne County, West Virginia, it would mean $11.84 million to the county commission every year. A 1 gigawatt, $40 billion data center. 11.8 million. For your multi-purpose excess levy, 16 million. For your schools, 14.8. Oh, but I forgot the school permanent improvement excess levy, another 4.1 million. Your school bonds, 8.776 million. And on top of that, your school excess levy, $63,342,000 a year, every year. Per gigawatt, $119 million a year. But I'm not done. It also means 2% off of the personal income tax for the entire state of West Virginia. It contributes $44.436 million every year to the personal income tax reduction fund. All counties split $8.8 million a year, every county in the state. Oh, by the way, we've had a lot of mention of water. Did you know that that would also mean a $4.5 million contribution to the Economic Enhancement Grant Fund at the Water Development Authority? A 10% increase in the base appropriation per gigawatt that we put to the Water Development Authority every year. You want to do something about the water in the state of West Virginia? $4.5 million a gigawatt. By the way, there's been 2 gigawatts already announced in Mason County from a company called Frontieras. I hope everybody writes them a thank you letter, because that's $9 million additional dollars, or 20% more money than we automatically put in every year to the Water Development Authority. And by the way, that money can be used in Wyoming County and in Wayne County. Now, if we want to bring up the concerns surrounding somebody who, as I understand it, was a crackhead, who broke into a substation and spilled a bunch of mineral oil, well, I guess you're against electricity, period, and I'm sorry if anybody was heating your homes over the last couple of weeks. Now, friends, we have this for all 55 counties, every last one of them. I can send it to you. Most of you have already sent it to. I haven't mentioned sales taxes. I haven't mentioned personal income taxes. I haven't mentioned corporate net income taxes. I haven't mentioned the construction jobs. I haven't mentioned the permanent jobs. All I mentioned was the property taxes. To any of you listening at home, we're here and trying to do something good for you. On top of that, we're trying to do something that's going to increase the state of West Virginia's economic potential. And to those considering siting in the state of West Virginia, we welcome and look forward to this investment, because it's transformational everywhere that it goes in an incredibly positive way. Mr. Speaker, I urge rejection of both amendments. Thank you.
From the 98, Douglas Funkhauser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman from the 72nd yield?
Sure. Yes.
Thank you. You know, you've heard some of the concerns about the aquifer depletion and stuff. Could you are you aware of what the current law, and if, you know, say these rules go forward unamended, how would that address those concerns?
For clarity's sake, I am not an attorney. However, I do deal with this on a regular basis. So yeah, it's a common ownership, a reasonable use doctrine, I guess, is the right, not just a prior appropriation doctrine. So when you drill a well, we'll talk about the Eastern Panhandle. You have to do, as I mentioned earlier, a step-down test, a yield test. You look at what the conductivity of the wells are and what the impact on the aquifer is. And so when you do a yield test, they monitor not only what your drawdown is over a drawdown test and an extended period test, but also how it may impact other wells. So in order to resolve any of those issues, you have to submit that hydrogeological test that shows that you have no impact or negligible impact on the aquifer, or you can't get a well permitted at the rate of which you're requesting. So that is the protection that I referenced, and I hope that answers your question.
Yes, and so we're talking about high-impact data centers here with these amendments, and what are we looking at the minimum investment for these things?
You know, you see anywhere from ranges from $2 to $4 billion per 100 megawatts.
Do you think these potential data center developers would they do their due diligence on water?
Yeah, I can tell you, just in discussions, they do due diligence, whether it's on water, whether it's on electricity. You know, they're risking a very significant investment. So to invest those type of dollars without evaluating what risks are involved is something that they typically don't do, especially those, you know, Strong Seven, the Magnificent Seven.
And one final question. You know, and for your average West Virginian that has your average West Virginian that has a concern that maybe if a data center comes in and you know, there's a lot of good things that come with that, but there's a concern, well, they've got a well and they might deplete the aquifer. What would you tell that average West Virginian with a well?
If they ask me specifically, I tell them I have a well on my property and I offered a piece of property that it's not mine, but located about 1,000 feet from my front porch, because I think it's very beneficial and transformative to my county and to the state of West Virginia.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to speak to the amendments. You know, this one is not something that I woke up today and knew how I was going to vote. I certainly appreciate the gentleman from the 2nd and the 10th and the 72nd. And, you know, I think the amendments, authors and sponsors, I think they're well intended as well. You know, West Virginia law has common law fair use doctrine. We also have abrogated that in certain aspects. When we're looking at the surface coal mining provisions of 22-3-24, we say, the previous legislation has said something that simply reiterates the common law fair use doctrine, that if a coal miner depletes or contaminates an aquifer, they have a responsibility to provide the water if they deplete it or to clean it. But hopefully we don't get that far. But regarding 2226, the gentleman from the 10th, I appreciate is a reporting requirement. But I really appreciate the gentleman from the 22nd sort of explaining sort of the technical defects, and that's why, even though I agree with the intentions behind both amendments, I will be voting against them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 29th to close debate on the amendment.
Mr. Speaker, I was going to ask the gentleman from the 22nd if he would yield.
Gentleman can use the recognition however you want, but this is your closure.
Gracias. Mr. Speaker, with regard to the question I was going to ask the gentleman from the 22nd, I heard the gentleman mention during his discussion of the amendment that some of the funding from this would go to a particular fund within the Water Development Authority, Economic Development Enhancement Grant Fund, I believe is what he was referring to. And it's not clear to me that the funds which go into that account have to be used necessarily for water infrastructure.
I seem to be aware that those funds can be used for other things. So it's not necessarily the case that they have to be used for water infrastructure. Now, as it relates to a number of the other remarks which have been made, we've heard that this is a rules bill, and so therefore it shouldn't take up any other matters. Well, I will remind this body that a rules bill, the whole purpose of a rules bill is to establish rules and guardrails such as are not contained and should have been contained in this year-long process to get us to this point where we are today. So things such as the notification for citizens so that they know whether or not a high-impact data center is going to be built in their backyard. That's just a basic guardrail. We're not asking for anything crazy here. Having a voice and a say in the construction of a high-impact data center. Again, are we banning data centers? I don't see anything in this amendment that bans a data center. We've heard a lot of hyperbole from some in this body, falsely claiming and trying to make the argument that the amendment is banning data centers. Well, the testimony I heard from the gentleman from the, where'd he go? The 22nd, earlier, if that testimony is accurate, and I believe it generally is, most of the data centers will probably locate themselves next to rivers and sources of high volumes of water that they could use for their purposes. And yes, most of the data centers will have high efficiency chipsets that are going to be able to cool their racks and do what they need to do with a fairly minimal amount of water compared to 5, 10, or 20 years ago. But it's not the case that we have to address every data center in West Virginia to be concerned about those potential bad actors who might locate next to you, next to your community, and without any specific provisions. We've heard, the case made that, oh, well, there's this provision over here in this section of code for, water wells, and we've heard that there's this other provision over here. There's nothing specific for data centers. There's nothing to trigger any inspection from the Department of Commerce or anyone else for a data center that would like to set up shop, withdraw groundwater, potentially affect your private well that your family depends upon. Currently, there's nothing. We've had a year to put that into this rules bill, which, by the way, is just another bill like any other bill, which can be amended, which it has been, which includes these provisions, and which has been upheld for discussion and debate here today, and which we're going to take a vote on in just a little bit. There's nothing in the rule to protect our Fourth Amendment rights. What is in the rule and what is in our amendment is the authorization of the rule. That's preserved. That's not gotten rid of. It's still there. So the facts are simple. Sometimes if we're not careful, we can start to believe that we're better informed than our constituents, that their concerns are, ill-founded, ill-informed, maybe quaint in this era of the emerging technocracy where we know best. And when this happens, we have to check ourselves. We have to search ourselves. We have to find the humility of a public servant rather than the hubris that sometimes prevails in this body. And sometimes, without a doubt, things are sensationalized. I know that sometimes social media gets carried away, but I also know that West Virginians, they know instinctively that in our legal system, trespass takes the bullet train, and redress and relief for injury, they take a horse and buggy far too often. West Virginians know that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and they're just asking for some prevention. So we've heard from people all around the state. It's not just these, far left, tree-hugging activists who send us the mass emails, which we all get. It's not those people we're talking about here today. It's the people who stop us at the gas station, in the grocery aisle, to say, what are you doing to protect us? They're not asking for us to ban data centers, and we're not. That's not what this amendment does. But they have voiced their concerns, and they're asking that we hear them. This amendment is a reasonable, level-headed approach to address these concerns which have been brought before us. Whether it's the quality of community life, water concerns, local control, concerns about surveillance, we need to take heed and put in place these common sense protections. This is the least we can do for the people who sent us up here. I'm asking for your support for this amendment. I'm asking for all of the yeas and none of the nays. Let's do this for our people. Light it up green. Thank you.
Gentleman, the 79th, Doug Hanson is recognized to close debate on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the debate today. And if it's not obvious by this point, I would just like to clarify that my amendment is very tailored. It's very short, and it focuses specifically on protecting our water resources. The gentleman from the 17th asked the sponsor of the other amendment if he's just opposed to all data centers. He didn't ask me that question. But in case you're wondering, the answer is no, I'm not opposed to all data centers. I just want them to be done right. And House Bill 2014 addressed the energy side. Like it or hate it, we addressed energy. The 2014 did not address water, and that's what my finely tailored amendment attempts to do. Now, I'm not going to bring up all the arguments that were made, but there were a few that I did want to reply to. First of all, about other permitting requirements. It was brought up by my friend from the 72nd about certain permitting requirements for groundwater withdrawals. But keep in mind that data centers are not necessarily withdrawing from groundwater. Some of the largest concerns are about withdrawals from rivers and streams. My friend from the 11th brought up a water pollution control permit that's required to discharge pollutants into rivers and streams. That's true. Keep in mind that data centers aren't necessarily going to discharge pollutants into rivers and streams and won't necessarily get one of those permits. So I maintain what I said before, that the Water Resources Protection and Management Act is an after-the-fact reporting requirement, just like the Chair of Energy said. If you withdraw a lot of water, you have to report that after the fact. There's no permit in place or approval process in order to develop an intake and potentially impact downstream users. Now, I did want to reply to one more statement that was made, and this one is in response to my friend from the 2nd, the Vice Chair of Energy, who talked about an intake form that the Department of Commerce has been developing to request information from the data centers about their water use. I'm familiar with that process too, and like he said, it was mentioned in committee. I'm glad to hear that there's a new draft. I really am. But my understanding is that the Department of Commerce has been working on that issue for a long time now. They had a chance to finalize that, put it online before the committee met last week, and they didn't. And then they heard all the concern expressed in committee last week, the pressure that was being put on them to put that form online, to finalize it, make it active. They had a week, and they still haven't done it. It's still in draft form. I fear that we may be getting strung along and that they're not going to do the right thing unless we put it in the rule and require them to do that. So I wanted to end by just talking about the Department of Commerce's role in this process of certifying these data centers. As they described it in committee, they're gatekeepers. they're requesting certain information to make sure that these data center developers are serious, that they've thought about where they're getting their electricity from. They have at least the outlines of a reasonable plan for their electricity. And it's perfectly reasonable to add a requirement as gatekeepers to make sure they have a reasonable plan for their water. This is not an onerous requirement that's going to cause them to miss deadlines. As I think the gentleman from the 72nd said, these are billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar investments. They're going to have the people in place to understand West Virginia state code and whatever rule we pass out of this body. They're going to understand those requirements. They've got billions of dollars riding on these investments. They're going to do the right thing and meet the rule if we put it into rule. So this is not onerous. The rule would require them to disclose where they're getting their water from, where it's going to, and how it might impact other users, so that a farmer who's withdrawing from groundwater isn't going to lose his water, so that a public water system that's downstream and withdraws from the river won't have their withdrawals impacted. So in my opinion, water is the state's most precious resource. This is something that we can do to make sure that it's protected for future generations while also allowing for economic development. So I would ask for your support on this amendment, and Mr. Speaker, I would ask for the yeas and nays.
Debate on both amendments has now been closed. The question will be on adoption of the amendment explained by the clerk, read by the clerk and explained by the sponsor, gentleman from the 29th, Doug Dillon first. If adopted, it will preclude further consideration of the amendment read by the clerk and explained by the gentleman from the 79th, Doug Hansen. A roll call was requested on both amendments. Are the requests sustained? Requests are sustained. The question is, shall the amendment read by the clerk and explained by its sponsor, the gentleman at 29th, Doug Dillon, be adopted? Those in favor of adoption will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 6 ayes, 87 nays, and 6 members absent, less than a majority in the affirmative. The chair declares that amendment lost. Question now is on the amendment read by the clerk and explained by the sponsor, gentleman from the 79th, Doug Hansen. Those in favor of adoption of the amendment will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 23 ayes, 70 nays, and 6 members absent. Less than a majority in the affirmative. The chair declares the amendment lost. Are there further amendments to the bill? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading. Next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4993 relating to authorizing green flashing warning lights on division of highways, vehicles, and other equipment at the discretion of the Commissioner of Highways.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4999 relating to crimes against athletic officials.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 5101, the Joanna Phillips Domestic Violence Prevention Act.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced. Are there other bills on second reading? If not, bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4009 relating to the creation of the Portable Benefit Account Act.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4088 relating to certified public accountants.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4568 clarifying abuse of process.
Bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4709 relating to changing the process of election litigation.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4710 changing the limit on switching parties for filing to run for office from 60 days to 180 days prior to an election.
Bill will be advanced.
House Bill 5166 to provide notice to any political committees violating the filing requirements prior to assessing any civil fines and giving the Secretary of State authority to grant additional time for compliance not to exceed an additional 14 days.
Bill will be advanced.
House Bill 5176 relating to creating the Animal Abuse Database within West Virginia State Police.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 5182 relating generally to authorizing security personnel employed by the State Treasurer to carry concealed weapons while performing his or her official duties.
Bill will be advanced. Do we have other bills on first reading? If not, leaves of absence. Gentleman from the first.
For our colleagues Jared Cannon, Brian Smith, and Kump.
Are there objections to leaves of absence being granted? No objections are heard. Leaves of absence are granted. Introductions. Miscellaneous business. Gentleman from the first.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the subject to announcements. The House adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
Are there announcements? Gentleman from the first.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Rules Committee will meet tomorrow in the Speaker's Conference Room at 10:45.
Gentleman from the 72nd, Doug Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Finance will meet tomorrow, Tuesday, February 17th at 9 a.m. for a committee meeting. The agenda will be posted.
Gentleman from the 41st, Delegate Maynor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Judiciary Committee and subcommittees will meet on Tuesday, February 17th in the Judiciary Committee room. Committee on Judiciary will meet at 9 a.m. Republican members of the committee will caucus in the chairman's office at 8:45 a.m. Subcommittee on Legal Services will meet at 9:45 a.m. Subcommittee on Homeland Security will meet at 10 a.m. Subcommittee on Courts will meet at 10:15 a.m. and all agendas will be posted. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 39th, Douglas Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Standing Committee on Government Organization will meet today at 3 p.m. in the Government Organization Committee room. The agenda is posted. Republicans will caucus in the chair's office at 2:45. Your Subcommittee on Local Governments will meet tomorrow at 1 p.m. in the Government Organization Committee room. The agenda is posted. Republicans will caucus in the chair's office at 12:45. Your Subcommittee on Government Administration will meet tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. in the Government Organization Committee room. The agenda is posted. Republicans will caucus in the chair's office at 1:15. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 92nd, Douglas Height.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Health and Human Resources will meet today, Monday, February 16th at 5 p.m. in the Health and Human Resources Committee room. Republicans will caucus at 4:30. Also, the Health and Human Resources will meet tomorrow, February 17th at 3:30 p.m., and Republicans will caucus at 3. The agendas are posted. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 43rd, Douglas Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Standing Committee on Education will meet today at 3 p.m. in the Education Committee room. The agenda is posted. Republican members of the committee will caucus at 2:25 in the chairman's office. Your Subcommittee on Public Education will meet tomorrow at 1 p.m. in the Education Committee room. The agenda is posted. Lastly, your Standing Committee on Education will meet tomorrow at 1:30 in the Education Committee room. The agenda will be posted.
Gentleman from the 2nd, Douglas Teslo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Standing Committee on Energy and Public Works will meet today, February 16th, in the House Judiciary Committee room at 5 p.m. Also, the Republicans will caucus tomorrow at 3 in the House Judiciary Committee room. The agenda is posted. Thank you.
Are there further announcements? If not, the question is on the motion that the House adjourn at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House is adjourned at 11 a.m. tomorrow.